Hi, welcome back, everyone. This is your friend Greedy Fanfics, bringing you another fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the first part of What If Deku Had No Quirk. All credit for this story goes to a boy in historyship, so please support them by checking out the link in the description for more details. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Now, let's get into the fanfic. Izuku is bored. He cannot stress enough how bored he is. The most interesting part of middle school is hiding from all the bullies trying to beat him up. The work there itself provides no challenge it never did. Izuku had after all graduated from high school when he was 6, and he just recently graduated from university for the 7th time. As a 13-year-old. The obvious question is then, why is Izuku bored in the classroom of Aldera Middle School hoping no one notices him today? The answer is simple. He has no quirk. And in the world of quirks and superpowers, being one of the 20% of people who don't have one is all most people need to hear. His mom had done her best to get him to test out of school, to do something meaningful, but after the 3rd attempt the school board decided he was cheating and would refuse to recognize the now 7 degrees he has. Online school did not ask for his quirk, thankfully. And that is the start, the setup if you will, to L. A very bored child prodigy with no friends, sitting at home on a Sunday night, when his mom texted him, "Honey, I got a super special surprise for you." As if on cue, an email dropped into his inbox, not his normal Smallmite account, but a throwaway he created a while ago for some project he finished and got bored of. The email seemed to be from the pro hero Ingenium and was titled Case Notes. Izuku paused. Was this a mistake? Or the surprise mom had mentioned? She didn't know he was bored and loved heroes. They probably threw him an easy case they already solved, like something for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Izuku shrugged, not like he had anything better to do. He opened the email and sighed, saying, "Thanks, Mom, at least for the effort." The case was painfully simple, even with just a glance at the photos shown. But at the very least he should write up his conclusions and all the evidence that made him come to it. After all, he can't be rude. Ingenium Agency. Ingenium did not expect a response so fast from the Bureau of Quirks, at least not at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, but half an hour after he sent the email he got one back. The reply was not from the Bureau but from an address called L for Justice. And within was a simple message. "Thank you for allowing me to look into this, Ingenium. I appreciate your trust in me. Even if it was a simple case, I'm sure you solved it long before you sent it my way. Below are the conclusions I reached along with the evidence within the folder you sent to support them. Have a pleasant day." Below the text was a detailed breakdown of the evidence, and an analysis the likes of which Ingenium had never seen, the conclusion, the ID of the perp, all the evidence as to why. It was insane, and made him feel like slamming his head onto his desk. He would need to get all of this verified, of course, but he felt it in his bones. This L, whoever they were, just solved a cold case in less than half an hour, just from the evidence folder. Ingenium reread the note. L could be mocking him and his inability to solve this easy case. A prank by another pro? Or maybe he just genuinely stumbled on a diamond in the rough? He would ask around. If it was the former taking his lumps, if it was the later, well, L could be of a great help in other cases. 6 months later. Izuku was not stupid, not by any metric. Okay, he might not be the best socially, but that comes with being a quirkless Deku. Yes, he may not be stupid, but that does not stop him from feeling like an idiot. The last 6 months have been very fun, and it's been very nice of the pros to humor him. Sometimes he even ends up on video calls with some of them. Of course his camera is busted and his crappy mic is distorted, which makes it sound like he's using a voice changer, but that's nothing to worry about too hard. And then some hero in turn sent him a logo, a super fancy letter L on a white background. He thought it was cute and became his picture he used for these video calls, at least until the pros got tired of humoring him. You see, that's where the being an idiot part comes into play. He had just closed a fun case of a group of international bank robbers, with a large group of international pro heroes. He did think it was weird that so many pro heroes from all over the world would be willing to listen to him babble. But maybe they lost a bet to Ingenium or something. At least that's what he thought until the news, and the rumors of L, the world's greatest detective, started to spread. Theories abound as to who L is, the list of cases he had solved, how some of them had been cold and too hard for anyone to crack before L had been brought on. The final thing that put the nail in the coffin of whatever deniability Izuku may have had is when a pro-hero from America came on to talk about working with L, and they showed the logo the intern made for him. It was no coincidence he, a quirkless nobody, had somehow tricked the world into thinking he is the world's greatest detective. Izuku promptly passed out. When Izuku came to with a groan, he was lying on the floor, his laptop was off, and the apartment was quiet. Inko would not be back until late that night. And he was at a crossroads. He could fess up to the big misunderstanding, tell them who he really is, and be banished from the only sense of belonging he ever had as L. Or he could try to keep the illusion up for a bit longer and hope no one looks into L too deep. Most likely it will end the same way anyway, the pain of the quirkless Deku wasting hero's time. But if he can stave off the uselessness for any amount of time, it would be worth it. Izuku is now the world's greatest detective, at least until someone figures out who he is, but that's good enough for him. HPSC building. The room was large and dark, filled with all kinds of heroes, some limelight, some underground, police and other groups. On the stage was a figure from the HPSC who finished their long speech. To conclude, it has become clear that in order to catch the hero killer we need a fresh view, we need L. The room went quiet for a second as the HPSC figure set up a laptop. Aizawa did not know much about L, Mike would not shut up about the mysterious listener, and his students have been speculating about whoever they are, since they got a footnote mention in some interview. The screen lit up with a Gothic letter L as a disguised voice said, "Hello everyone, I am L, but you knew it. Before we get started, I want to thank you all for this chance to work with you all." Aizawa narrowed his eyes. The voice was disguised, but it sounded nervous and young. Endeavor demanded, "And what do you have to offer us, L?" He finished in an almost mocking tone. L responded, sounding almost sheepish through the disguised voice. "Well, I was not allowed to review the evidence in depth yet, but from the glance I did get, it seems Stain has some kind of paralyzed quirk, possibly to do with blood, either contact or ingestion. He most likely works alone and is likely employed in a job that allows him to travel around the country, and with a uniform that provides a level of respectability while also not being noticed." The room was quiet before the HPSC guy asked, "Could you break it down for us, L?" L seemed eager, saying, "Of course, let's start with his quirk. It is notable that in all known victims of Stain there's very little evidence of any kind of major struggle or combat, in spite of the fact that 67% of the targets were well-known combat heroes." L carried on talking a mile a minute. "Also on all of the bodies there is a cut, quite swallow, not something a hero would worry about. This piqued my interest because it is the only non-fatal wound on any of the bodies." Aizawa looked at the pictures of the bodies, and on every one there was a cut, usually on the arm or leg, and is the only wound save for the cutting of the throat to kill the target. L, seemingly unaware of the bombshell he just dropped, added, "Now I can only guess on how he decides on his victims, or what criteria he uses to determine who is a false hero and who is not. The only pattern I have picked up is as follows. Anyone involved in the business side of the industry to even a minor degree is deemed unclean, and underground heroes are okay in his eyes." L kept talking, the entire room quiet. "This could be due to the nature of underground heroes, but that does not seem right. If I were to guess, they match his ideals of heroes better than limelight ones, moving in the dark, helping the citizens without fame or magazine covers." Aizawa grunted his agreement as L finished. "To bring this back around to his quirks, some of Stain's choice of victims has been odd, like 괡ᴜ, who was killed after being featured on page 5 of a fashion magazine, posing for a charity shoot. When ᴑᴜ also operated in the area, and is everything Stain should stand against, with his vast business empire and reality TV show about his life." Aizawa rubbed his eyes. He could feel the lead-up coming as L talked faster. "At first I was going to write it off as a one-off, but more and more similar cases kept popping up, and after looking into all the victims' quirks, one thing stood out to me, or well, one thing that is absent. ᴊᴇᴜ felt himself mouth the words at the same time as L. None of the victims had any natural protection quirks, hardening, scales, armor mutations etc. Nothing that could naturally stop a knife from cutting their skin and making them bleed. L kept going. As for working alone, well, that makes the most sense with what we can now assume about his quirk combined with what we know about his preferred method of killing. Simply he has no need for any allies or followers or likely any desire for them, since this crusade is his to carry and his alone. L's voice trailed off. Well, the job thing is a heavy supposition on my part, but it makes sense. After all, he requires weapons and equipment to attack, but also needs to live and eat like anyone else. I briefly considered if he was sponsored, possibly by criminal elements or anti-heroic groups with grudges against the so-called false heroes. But at that point Stain would stop being a serial killer and start being a hitman, and if he is as eager about his ideals as he appears to be, then that is unlikely. It could all be a cover, of course, and we will have to look into the idea that any group or person benefits in any way from these heroes being killed. L regained his confidence, saying, assuming he is not being sponsored, the obvious question of what does the hero killer do to live? I suspect he works as one of the unsung heroes of this world, garbage man, janitors, and what I think is most likely delivery drivers or postal workers, giving him access to a discreet way to travel and an excuse to travel the country looking for false heroes, while being a true hero, making an honest living instead of appearing in toothpaste commercials. The room was quiet, and then L yelped. Crap, my middle school dance is tomorrow. I'm not allowed to dance, but they are making me get up early to help set up the gym. Sorry to duck out after talking at all of you for the last hour. Hope you catch the guy. L out. The gothic L disappeared as L disconnected, and the room erupted, with everyone shouting some variation of, "He's in middle school!" Mike yelled. Yeah. The room quieted down. I know what we just heard threw us all for a loop, but the little listener was called for a reason. We need to follow up the points he made. Endeavor stormed out of the room. The room was tense before Miss Joke called dibs on his internship. And the room exploded again as everyone tried to argue why they should get L's internship when he goes to a hero school. ᴊᴇᴜ growled into his capture scarf. It was going to be a long night. Aldera Middle School 0600. Mr. Garrison is the school janitor and nicest person there. The competition is not fierce. He lets Izuku hide in his office or the underground pipe system when he's being chased and seems to generally have a soft spot for the quirkless kid. He was older, most likely pushing 60 to 65, and he pushed open the door to the gym asking, You going to be okay, Midoryia? Izuku shrugged. Nothing different from usual. They just want me to set up everything since they don't know how, while not letting me go to the dance proper. Mr. Garrison groaned. I wish you could report them. Izuku laughed. To who? You're the only one who cares. Mr. Garrison grumbled. Every time we talk about your life, my faith in humanity is lost just a little. Mr. Garrison leaned on his mop. Speaking of, how many degrees you on now, kid? Izuku shrugged. 8, just finished my forensics 1. Mr. Garrison grunted. Kid, you do not belong here. Izuku looked at him with a small smile. I don't belong anywhere, Mr. Garrison. Mr. Garrison looked at him with another groan. Kid, just this once could you lie to me? Let me live in LA land where talent and skills matter more than quirks. Izuku chuckled. Right, sorry. Mr. Garrison snapped up. Right, almost forget. New student coming for the last bit of the school year. A girl. She will be here to help with the setup. Something about not being able to attend the dance proper for some reason. She should be here soon. The unspoken. Be careful. Passed between them. Izuku nodded. Thanks, I should get started. Mr. Garrison said. Right, I will go see if she is here yet. Izuku started the setup on the lights and the sound system, falling into an easy rhythm, already thinking of getting home and reaching back out to the HPSC, assuming they even want to work with L again, after he ran off like that yesterday. He froze. Oh crap, I mentioned the middle school dance. Izuku started to mumble as he worked. Maybe I can play it off as a joke or maybe as being a teacher? A voice said from behind him. Play what off as a joke? Izuku spun around and before him stood a cute girl with brown hair and rosy cheeks. Her clothes were worn, most likely hand-me-down or thrift but of high quality, and her shoes were muddy and worn but clearly taken care of, built to last. There were pads on her fingers meaning a 5-finger contact quirk of some kind. Izuku paused. "Oh crap, he said that all out loud, didn't he?" The girl said. "Yep." Izuku's face went bright red. "I'm so sorry, I know I'm creepy and weird, just ignore me." The girl asked. "Did you mean any harm by it? Did you call me poor and talk shit?" Izuku said quietly. "No." The girl asked. "Then why would I be anything other than impressed that you took all that in just a few seconds?" The girl looked eager. "I mean, was that your quirk?" Izuku exhaled. "Well, this is it, time for the other shoe to drop." He answered quietly. "No, I don't have a quirk, I'm quirkless." A loud silence filled the air before the girl exploded with questions. "You're telling me you did that without a quirk? Hot damn, just how smart are you?" Izuku's eyes went wide, meeting the girl's eager ones, mumbling, "Not that smart." Mr. Garrison scoffed from the entrance to the gym, calling out, "Yeah right, Mr. graduated high school at age 6, 8 college degrees by the time he turns 14, you're not that smart, my ass." The girl looks like a fish out of water. "He's kidding, right?" "That's amazing," Izuku asked. "It is." Mr. Garrison rolled his eyes. "Say thank you." "College boy." Izuku blushed. "Right, thank you." The girl held out one of her hands. "Uraraka o Chako. My folks got a big contract here, hence moving so late in the year. I plan to be a rescue hero like 13. And I am studying hard for UA. Izuku smiled. 13 is great, one of the top-tier rescue heroes. Uraraka asked. "What about you?" Izuku answered. L. Midoryia Izuku Midoryia. I'm not used to talking to girls and stumbled over my own name like a dumbass. He finished with an awkward laugh, hoping she did not notice the slip-up. Uraraka punched his arm. "Hey, none of that! With those detective skills, you would kill it as a hero." Izuku shook his head. "Not so sure most schools hang up after just hearing well that I'm a quirkless Deku." Uraraka looked down. "That's not fair," Izuku replied. "Life is not fair." Silence filled the room before Izuku said, "Come on, we need to get to work." HPSC conference room. The Gothic letter L appeared on the projector as the voice said, "Sorry for running out like that yesterday." A hero called out, "It's okay, L, did you enjoy your dance?" Aizawa could almost feel the blush through the screen, saying, "I was not able to go, they got another teacher to cover it." Aizawa hid his face in his capture scarf and could see the other heroes looking at each other the same way. It seems L is a terrible liar. L cleared their throats, saying, "Has anything new happened since yesterday?" A detective stood up. "We followed up on your deductions with the National Quirk Database, and we might have his name and quirk," L said. "Sweet! What are we looking at?" An HPSC officer started to read. "Kaizo Makaguro, quirk, blood cruddle. He can freeze anyone so long as he ingests their blood. How long depends on the blood type. He briefly attended a small hero school for around 3 months." L paused, saying, "On the off chance he is not using an alias, have we run him for tax records and employment history after leaving his hero school?" A detective answered, "Yes, he bounced around a lot, before dropping off the grid about 5 years ago." L said, "About the time of the death of the first hero, we need to dive deeper into that first hero, now that we have Stain's true name and are aware that he was not at that time trying to purge heroes. Something must have sent him over the edge, friends, family, co-workers. Something happened to someone that made him come to the conclusion that fame in heroics makes them unclean." The detective grunted an affirmative. L then added, "Now that we are aware of Stain's biometrics, we should sweep camera footage around the time of the attacks and just before. Since we know his height, weight, and other key features, he should be possible to pick up, and perhaps get us a new lead to follow." Fourth Kind stood up. "About that new lead, you mentioned he might be employed in what you termed the unsung heroes of our world, correct?" L answered. "Yes, did you find something?" he finished eagerly. Fourth Kind answered, On a hunch, I reached out to a buddy of mine who runs the National Building Inspectors Union, asked him if he had any employees in the cities when the murders took place. He told me that not often on the day of, but usually about a week in advance. L paused. Could be a coincidence, could not be. A building inspector would be a good cover for Stain to move around through cities, find locations to commit his crimes and scout out victims. L asked. Do we know if it was all just one inspector? ⴡᴜᴜ answered. My buddy wanted to tell me, but he can't talk specifics without a warrant. L agreed. Of course, if we could make that happen, if for no other reason than to end this thread, we should. The HPSC officer nodded. Already calling a judge, L said. With him being a hero school dropout and so dogmatic about true heroes, he was likely a vigilante at some point. Now that we know his quirk, it will make looking into his past easier in this regard. I would ask the HPSC and underground heroes to do just that. L stated. We have many pieces of the puzzle, but some of the ones we are missing are the most important. While those that have tasks should go forth and do them, I would like to pick the rest of your brains on how he chooses his victims. Everyone shifted as L mumbled. All the victims' records vary wildly. All willing went out of their way for some kind of public exposure, outside what cannot be avoided by the very nature of daylight heroics. No one method of media is always used to determine the victim, with some only appearing in print, with others only appearing on the net. L sipped something before carrying on his thought. Also, how important the publication is or how prominently the victim feature are also not factors, it seems. So unless he is putting the names of every hero in the city involved with business activity on a dartboard and uses that to determine his victims, I don't have much. L added. Their public perception also varies wildly, some being hated by the general public, others beloved. I looked into the victims' history with marginalized groups. The HPSC data I was given was a dead end. No complaints had been filed against any of the victims, or at least none that stuck, so I started digging on my own. About 80% of all the victims had online complaints and stories of abuse against members of marginalized communities. L paused before saying, 60% were from people identified to have villainous quirks and were often subject to quirk profiling by the victims. A further 40% had scary or unpleasant mutations. Silence filled the room before L spoke again. What interests me is the 20% or so of the victims that, no matter how hard I dug, seemed to have done nothing most would consider wrong. Maybe they had victims that either never survived to report it, even within their own groups. Perhaps they simply do not have any connections with any community of similar people. It's possible, but then how would Stain know to target them? L took another sip, the noise distorted over the screen, saying, See my dilemma? Stain clearly has a type of victim, quirkiest fame hounds. All his victims have the same traits save for these few? Is it personal? They are scattered all over his list of victims, not grouped together. Is he killing other pros just to throw us off the scent of these handful of murders? L exhaled. Try as I might, nothing fits. L sighed. Of course there's one group left, one that no one cares about. Aizawa spoke. The quirkless. The silence filled the room before L agreed. The quirkless can't unite in a community and no one cares about you, them. Tragic but true. But the question of how Stain would even know the quirkless were being harassed by the heroes still holds true, assuming that is even the reason behind the targeting of the 20%. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, but L said quickly, Well, there is no point with leads that will only be dead ends. We need to focus on the evidence we do have. We should look into these groups, see if we can ID Stain, an account, an IP address, anything. An underground hero called. I got some contacts in those support groups. I will reach out to see if they had any drop-ins meeting Stain's description. L nodded. Good. Everyone else, we should take cities the hero killer has yet to visit, and dig into heroes there that meet his victim profile. Start with high-profile heroes, then try to find out their history with marginalized groups. L finished. I will leave you to prepare. The screen went black as L logged off. Aldera Middle School, lunch. Izuku sat at a picnic table. He'd his bonito hunched over. He had stashed his lunch in the tree like always and brought in his deco lunch. That was promptly destroyed by the bullies about 5 minutes ago. Izuku finished eating and leaned back, boredom filling his mind. Then there was a thump as Ūriqᴜ sat down and said, "Hey!" Izuku jumped. "Hello?" he stuttered. Ūriqᴜ asked. "Eating all alone?" Izuku shrugged. "No one wants to catch my quirklessness." Ūriqᴜ snorted. "And you didn't tell them that's biologically impossible?" Izuku chuckled. "Gave up on that in the 3rd grade. Ūriqᴜ sighed. "Man, what are you doing here? 8 degrees IQ if I don't even know. Shouldn't you be doing important things? Not sitting in middle school being made fun of for something you can't change." Izuku sighed. "You're not the first one to say that. My mom tried really hard to get me out of here. She gave up eventually. No one cared. You're a child prodigy. Big fucking whoop, you can't fire out lasers from your kneecaps, so you're useless." Ūriqᴜ said. "You never did say what you were going to do when middle school ends in 6 months. Izuku looked at her. "When I was younger I wanted to be a hero. After I was told about being quirkless, I checked every hero's school in the country and eventually the world. None of them accept quirkless students, none of them. After that came the PhD programs. I figured I could become a scientist." "Nope," Quirk required. Izuku leaned back. "I'm done, Ūriqᴜ. I have no future. The only reason why I'm not quitting while I'm ahead because I have one thing going for me. But eventually they will find out who I am and it all ends, and I go with it. No fuss, no muss. Write a nice note for my mom and hope I get a quirk in my next life." Ūriqᴜ looked at him. "So you would just give up?" Izuku sighed. "Is it giving up, when you never had a chance to start in the first place? Anything meaningful I can do in this life requires a quirk. The fact I'm doing something even somewhat important is sheer dumb luck, and that's because they think L has a quirk," he finished with a shout. He bushed eyes going wide. "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. I just told her I'm L. Okay, calm down. I can play it off as a joke if she even knows who L is." Ūriqᴜ asked. "L?" Izuku blushed. "Oh, nothing important. Just my gamer tag?" Ūriqᴜ said. "I thought you said it was the only important thing you do?" Izuku waved his hand. "Oh, that, just quirkless belly aching. You know how us geneless two toes are, always trying to talk ourselves up." He begged mentally. "Please buy it, please buy it." Ūriqᴜ stated. "You're a terrible liar." Izuku looked down. "You would not believe me if I told you the truth." Ūriqᴜ looked at him. "You don't have to tell me if it's uncomfortable for you, just is it legal?" Izuku laughed at the irony. "About as legal as it comes, I guess." The bell rang and Ūriqᴜ said, "You can trust me, Midoryia, with whatever it is, and the world would be lesser off without you in it." Izuku watched her go, saying, "Thank you, Hosu." The hero killer was hauled away, screaming, demanding to know how they found him. Aizawa turned away, almost wondering the same thing. L was something else. He was not Nezu, he checked. The Warren had come through and L figured out Hustain's plan and his next target before their very eyes. And now here they were having caught the hero killer. All thanks to a middle schooler. But something about the way the kid talked, he was nervous and awkward when he was not in his head figuring out cases. So the kid is some kind of socially awkward kid with an intelligence quirk of some kind, so what? What really made Aizawa raise his eyebrow were the fact L keeps himself hidden, possibly because of being young, which makes sense, but there are also the few slips he had. None of the task force seemed to have noticed, but the way L talked about the quirkless was a little more personal, and the slip where he almost called himself quirkless. Aizawa felt his intuition buzzing at the base of his neck. It felt illogical, but he trusted his gut, and it was telling him something simple yet feels almost impossible. L was quirkless. It had been about 2 months since Aizawa had worked with L on the Stain murder case, and the international community had reached an agreement. They would not call L for anything less than 4 bodies or roughly $1 million on the line. Everyone agreed that swamping the middle schooler with cases is a bad idea, and becoming reliant on L is just a bad idea overall. That's not to say that L has been idle, hardly. It's just the cases he has been taking have a lot more impact and tend to be more complex. Aizawa had yet to have cause to work with L again, and his attempts to look into who they are has fallen short. Aizawa is not even sure he is based in Japan, seeing as he seems to be fluent in at least 6 languages. That combined with him hiding who he is, well, he could be anywhere. Aizawa's thoughts were interrupted by his earpiece buzzing and a voice saying, "Sorry for contacting you like this, Eraserhead. This is L, and I need your help." 1 hour earlier. Izuku adjusted his uniform as he walked down the street. He smelled awful. Some of his bullies decided to play keep away with his bag, and then beat him up before throwing him into a dumpster, again. Izuku grumbled. They're not even creative. The bullies had been pent up recently. Uraraka had been keeping an eye on him, glaring at anyone who tried to talk shit. It was nice, but that also means when she is not around, the bullies have a lot of energy to work through. Izuku felt someone tug on his sleeve, and he looked down to see a little girl with white hair and a horn, dressed in dirty clothes, tears in her eyes. "Mister, please help." Izuku's mind supplied, abuse victim, on the run, Quirk connected to horn, get to safety. Izuku asked. "Who hurt you?" Kneeling in front of her. The girl said. "Overhaul." Izuku saw a bunch of guys coming. They were dressed like thugs, and were armed. Izuku grabbed the girl, wrapping her in his arms, and bolted as fast as he could, years of running from bullies coming in handy as he evaded. Once he was sure he lost them, he put the girl down. She looked at him, openly crying. He exhaled. "You're okay, you're safe, no one will hurt you now, okay?" The girl looked up at him with hope in her eyes, and Izuku asked, "What's your name?" The girl answered, "Eri." Izuku smiled. "Hello, Eri, my name is..." Izuku paused. He needs to take her to a police station, but they might dismiss her and him out of hand if they know he is quirkless. He looked back at her. "You can call me Ryuzaki." Eri nodded. "Okay, Mr. Ryuzaki." Izuku felt bad for lying to her, but it's the only way to keep Eri safe. Izuku stuck his hand out. "I'm going to take you to the police station, is that okay, Eri?" Eri refused to take his hand, saying, "My Quirk, I'm sick and will hurt everyone I touch." Izuku asked gently, "How do you make people sick, Eri?" Eri shook her head. "I make things not exist." Izuku smiled. "That is a really cool quirk, Eri." Eri looked at him in shock. "Mr. Ryuzaki?" Izuku looked at her. "Quirks are tools, pure and simple, not weapons, not curses, not good, not evil, they just are. I'm sorry people hurt you for something you didn't have control of, but I promise you, no one will hurt you now." Eri asked. "Promise?" Izuku held out his pinky. "I swear to do everything I can." Eri took his pinky in hers, saying, "Okay, Mr. Ryuzaki." Station. Tsukachi looked at the little girl in his office. She was sipping hot chocolate. Some young man had dropped her off here, waited until he was able to see her, and then left claiming he had to take a call and disappeared. The girl, Eri, was a victim of some of the worst abuse he has ever heard of, before being rescued by this Ryuzaki. Tsukachi paused. His only features were green hair. Other than that, he was painfully average, possibly wearing a uniform of some kind. It seemed none of the officers paid any attention to some kid good Samaritan. Tsukachi had run the name. There was no one meeting that description at any school in the region, so a fake name, so why? Eri said. "Thank you for the hot chocolate, Mr. Detective." "True." Tsukachi smiled at her. "It's okay, kiddo." Eri looked at her. "Where did Mr. Ryuzaki go?" Tsukachi exhaled. "I don't know, kiddo." Eri looked down. "Okay." Just then Eraserhead entered, a tired look on his face, saying, "This her?" Tsukachi asked. "Yeah, wait, how do you?" Eraserhead simply said. "L called me." "True." Tsukachi took in a deep breath. "He called you?" Eraser looked at the little girl happily sipping her hot chocolate, finally saying, "Yes, he did." A laptop was set up in the room. It flickered before the L appeared, his disguised voice reaching out quickly. "Sorry for the way this was set up. I know you usually come to me, but well, I became aware of Eri's story, and I could not just wait, you know. How is she, by the way?" Aizawa spoke carefully. "She is safe now, thanks to Ryuzaki." Looking carefully at the blank symbol, L exhaled. "That's good. Where is she now?" Tsukachi answered. With one of our officers, she's doing crosswords. She was really broken up when Ryuzaki disappeared. L seemed uncomfortable. Yeah, fuck that guy, huh? He finished with an awkward chuckle. Aizawa said. Maybe he had a reason to leave, that maybe his quirk would make us not believe the story. They heard L shift in a chair saying, Yeah, maybe, I will look into that on my end. Meantime, I tried looking into Eri. There was nothing, no school, no birth certificate, no records on her of any kind. Tsukachi grumbled. Tracks, she spent most of her life in a lab somewhere. L said. One thing He coughed loudly. Sorry, gagged on my water for a second there. Ryuzaki noticed that her clothes smelled like lemons, very strong lemons. Aizawa brushed past L's rapidly falling apart cover story. After all, he already knew the kid was as good of a liar as Mike would be at taking a vow of silence. Aizawa opted to say, Trigger? L started to mumble. Maybe. The average human 5-year-old run speed is 6 to 12 miles per hour. Eri was not out of breath when I found her, so she likely did not run far, but was able to get a head start. She was being chased by 3 adult men. Aizawa rolled his eyes. L had given himself away in his mumbles, but he was not going to say anything. He was in the zone after all. L pondered. Her clothes were nice. At least they were at one point. And there are no missing persons matching her, so she was not kidnapped by trigger dealers. That, combined with her lack of records, tells me she was born into a trigger-dealing family of some kind, and was experimented on once her quirk came in. But why? Tsukachi added. She was told she was diseased, but her sickness could help cure others. L answered with fury coming through in spite of the disguised voice. She called her quirk a disease. L took a deep breath, calming himself down. That may translate to an entire ideology. Some kind of quirkless supremacist group? Or someone who really hates quirks? If they are somehow using Eri's blood to create a cure for quirks, they are either a genius or a crackpot, possibly both. L said. I think it may be prudent to keep this on the low down for now. We don't want our opponents to know we know, or for panic to grip the streets at the idea of terrorists having a weapon to destroy quirks. Aizawa agreed. It would be chaos. L exhaled. Eraserhead, I know it's out of your wheelhouse, but we need to keep Eri safe, as well as teach her control of her quirk. You're the best option for both. UA is secure, and with Erasure you can stop her if she ever loses control. I know it's a lot to ask. Aizawa grunted. But it's logical. L said quietly. Take care of her. Aizawa simply nodded. L then said. Detective, we should start looking into trigger operations, on the higher end. It's a thin lead, I know. But these monsters need to be stopped. Tsukachi agreed. I will get started right away, L. L said a simple, thank you. Before logging off the laptop, the screen holding his logo turned black as the symbol shut off. Aizawa left the office as Eri looked up from her crosswords. How was your talk with Mr. L? Aizawa gruffly said. Good. Eri tilted her head. Mr. Eraser, are you mad at me? Aizawa's eyes went wide. Oh crap, how do you explain resting bitch face to a 5-year-old? Aizawa tried. No. I'm just tired. Eri nodded. Makes sense, Mr. Eraser, sorry for asking. Aizawa said in his best neutral and friendly tone. If you want, I will take you someplace safe. Eri grinned. Okay, Mr. Eraser, Mr. Ryuzaki told me to trust you when I meet you. Aizawa hid her small smile in his capture scarf, asking, Did he now? Before leading Eri out of the station towards a waiting UA car. Midoryia apartment. ᴡᴇ'ʟ Midoryia entered the apartment. Everything was quiet, which would be normal at 6 a.m., except usually her son Izuku would be up and getting ready for another painful day at school. He made a friend, so it was less bad now. ᴡᴇ'ᴟ saw the light was on in his room, and crept over to it. She gently knocked, saying, Izuku? ᴡᴇ'ᴟ gently opened the door to see her son passed out on her desk, notebook wide open, headphones on, playing what looked like security footage of some ally, where the same few seconds of a little girl running past played over and over. Next to it was a tab filled with dress shoe brands. ᴡᴇ'ᴟ shook her head, gently picking up Izuku, Ingenium's autograph still sitting on his desk from a few months ago. ᴡᴇ'ᴟ gently carried him to his bed, laying him out, pulling his all-might blanket up to his shoulders. She knew he was doing something that made him happy, and he assured her at length that it was legal, and that it was good enough for her. After all, if he makes her brilliant baby happy, that's good enough for her. ᴡᴇ went to call the school to let them know Izuku won't be coming in. Not that they care, she thought bitterly. Later he is going to have a talk with him about overdoing it. ᴘᴏ was not worried. Well, she was, but not in that way. It's not like she thought her friend had actually killed himself when he didn't come to school today like some people said with glee. Nah, he was just sick, she was sure. That's why she was coming over bringing her homework to get him caught up, ignoring the fact he has graduated college 8 times. ᴘᴏ approached the Midoryia apartment and gently knocked. A minute later a woman with green hair opened it carefully, asking, "Yes?" ᴘᴏ smiled. "Hello, is Izuku Midoryia here?" The woman narrowed her eyes. "Who is asking?" ᴘᴏ tried to hide her frown. ᴘᴏ, a friend from school, I have his homework." She held it up. The woman looked her up and down before saying, "So you're his friend?" ᴘᴏ shifted. "Yes." The woman pulled her into a hug. "Bless you, ᴘᴏ, I'm Izuku's mother, come in." ᴘᴏ was led into the apartment. It was small but tidy, a central living room and kitchen with pictures of ᴡᴇ and Izuku everywhere, no sign of his father anywhere, which ᴘᴏ tried not to think about too hard. ᴡᴇ said, "Izuku overdid, whatever it is he does, last night. He is currently taking it easy on my orders. I'm sure he will be happy to see you. His room is the one on the right." ᴘᴏ started down the hallway before ᴡᴇ called, "Let him know, I'm making tea." ᴘᴏ fired ᴡᴇ a thumbs up, before gently opening Izuku's door saying, "Midoryia, I'm here with your homework." Izuku was bopping on the spot, some pre-Quirk music playing in his headphones, twirling his pencil in his hand, as he watched footage of 3 men running down an alley. All the while he was zooming and writing, noting various things, mumbling a mile a minute. ᴘᴏ gently tapped his shoulder. Izuku jumped, his headphones falling off. He held his hand to his heart, saying, "ᴘᴏ!" ᴘᴏ blushed. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Izuku casually tried to block the screen, saying, "So what's up?" ᴘᴏ shook her head, saying, "Bringing your homework." She then punched his shoulder. "You scared the crap out of me." Izuku went red. "Right, sorry, I should have texted." ᴘᴏ glared. "Yeah, you should have, dummy, I thought you quit while you're ahead." Izuku exhaled. "Not yet, ᴘᴏ." ᴘᴏ then hugged him. "Please don't disappear like that again, you're my friend." Izuku patted her back. "I know, I'm sorry." ᴘᴏ pulled away. "So who are these jokers?" Izuku chuckled. "No one nice." ᴘᴏ looked at the footage, saying, "I have seen this guy before." Izuku's eyes went wide. "Wait, when?" ᴘᴏ shrugged. "I was younger, he tried to contact my parents to build a lab or something. Dad didn't like his vibe, so we turned it down. He said he was from some family or something. Sorry, Midoryia, that's all I recall." Izuku grabbed her hands. "ᴘᴏ, I need you to reach out to your dad and ask him to recall anything he knows about this guy. Anything, I mean anything could be helpful." ᴘᴏ said. "Okay." Izuku was already turning back to his computer, muttering, "So they purpose-built the lab, and did not find it. That goes to intent and purpose. Above ground? A pharma company? No, too exposed, too much wiggle room for Eri to get help. Underground then? A bunker?" ᴘᴏ started to text her dad. "Police station." The Gothic L appeared on the screen and L started to speak. "Alright, big news, I was able to ID one of the guys chasing Eri, and from there his entire group. Meet Kai Chisaki, aka Overhaul. Current leader of the Shai Hasaikai group of Yakuza." Aizawa growled. "You sure?" L said. "Yeah, a friend of mine remembered him for when they tried to hire a construction company to build a lab. My friend turned them down, but clearly someone else did not. And best yet, we have an address of where they wanted the lab built." L exhaled. "And that's the rub, it's under the Yakuza main base, not quite a fortress but it's close, so we are not getting in there with just a Eraserhead and a dream. This would require a full-scale assault." Tsukachi answered. I can call in some big guns, reliable people, who would beat these guys to high heaven just for hurting Eri. Never mind about the Quirk eraser. L asked. Speaking of, how is she? Eri, I mean? ᴡᴇᴜ shrugged. Managing. According to Midnight and Mike, she is adjusting to being under my care well. The students love her, and she is the hero course unofficial mascot. She still asks about Ryazaki. L said quietly. I'm glad she's okay. Well, I have done my part. I will leave it to the more combat-oriented among you, but when you find Overhaul, punch him in the face for me. ᴡᴇᴜ answered. Can do. L. Yakuza hideout. The wall blew open as All Might stood proudly. Stop right there, scum, for I am here. Heroes poured in, overwhelming the Yakuza, taken totally by surprise. ᴡᴇᴜ erased Overhaul's quirk as he was mid-lecture about how evil quirks are before punching him in the face, hard. Across the street, Izuku stood, hands in his pockets, wearing a baseball hat, a small smile on his face. They did it. He started to walk home, pulling out his phone. He called Ūraraka, saying, Who answered? Hey. Izuku grinned. We did it thanks to you. Ūraraka said quietly. That monster is going to jail. Izuku answered. Yep, they are going to throw him into a hole and forget about him. Eri is safe. Ūraraka smiled. Thanks to you? Izuku blushed. I did not do much. He could feel Ūraraka's eyes roll. So you are going to reach out to Eri? Izuku paused before shaking his head. No point, she has other people. She does not need a quirkless Deku like me. Ūraraka said with venom. Need may not have anything to do with it. You saved her. Izuku, when no one else could, you saved her. Izuku shook his head. See you at school tomorrow. Izuku ended the call. Ūraraka lay on her bed with a groan. He has no idea what he's worth, does he? Ūraraka lay still for a minute before saying, Fuck it. She turned over and opened her internet browser. She typed L and hit the search button. Izuku walked towards the school when a hand landed on his shoulder. Ūraraka said, Izuku, we need to talk. Izuku blushed. Can it wait, until after school? Ūraraka said simply. It's about L. Izuku blushed harder. Oh, you game, want to swap tags? Ūraraka held up her phone with the headline. What do we know about L? The so-called world's greatest detective. Izuku snatched her phone away, closing the tab. Not so loud. Ūraraka glared. Why, everyone should know how great you are. All the lives you have saved, you're a hero. Izuku grabbed her shoulders. I'm a fraud. Look, the only reason they care, they ask for L's help, is because they think I have super intelligence quirk, like Nezu. Ūraraka grumbled. You're probably smarter than Nezu. Izuku said. Ask him his IQ score when you go to UA, but Ūraraka, shouting about this is not going to do anything. All it takes is one person putting the pieces together, and L is done, and L is all I have. Ūraraka, please. Ūraraka looked up at him. You deserve more than this, hiding, waiting for your life to be over. You deserve to tell the world how amazing Izuku is. Izuku shook his head. Maybe in another life, another world, that would be true. I'm sorry for yelling at you, Achicho. Just the idea of losing L. Izuku hung his head. Izuku looked at the school. 2 months you're off to UA, and well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Ūraraka touched his shoulder. We will figure it out, Izuku, together. Izuku smiled at her. Thank you. After school, Izuku walked home. What Ūraraka said turning over in his head, he wished she was right. He had never wished he was more wrong in his life, but sadly he was sure he was right. Izuku kicked a rock, grumbling. They control everything, just like they always said they would. Izuku shook his head, adding, When someone tells you who they are, believe them. Izuku chuckled. Well, I'm running out of platitudes. Maybe a nice fuck quirkism, to really round off this fun discussion. Izuku burst out laughing, shaking his head. Fuck, my life sucks. A voice from behind said. Yep. A second before, Izuku was punched in the back of the head, and a black bag was pulled over his head. Ūraraka narrowed her eyes. Izuku had promised to text her when he got home, but nothing. He probably got distracted, but her gut told her something was wrong. But she was not sure what. Izuku was splashed with cold water as a goon said, "Wakey wakey quirkless." Izuku looked up, he saw 3 goons, all wearing masks, and black clothes, and some instruments from a series of book about torture techniques he really should not have read when he was 7. Izuku took a punch to the gut. "Is that why you are wearing red shoes, you geneless moron?" They ranted. He had not been listening. Izuku sent up a silent prayer hoping this works, saying, "Quirkless? I didn't think they even existed in this generation. I have a quirk. It's nothing cool or powerful like you guys, it's green hair." A goon produced a hammer and Izuku focused on his breathing. They brought it down on his hand, yelling, "Stop lying!" Izuku put on the tears, yelling, "I'm not lying! My name is Ryuzaki! My quirk is green hair, and that shit is not natural, is it? I'm sorry for wearing red shoes. But whatever it is you think I did, you're wrong." The goons looked at each other saying, "We are the quirk hunters, and we are here to purge the world of geneless freaks, relics of ages past." Izuku filed this info for later. "Well, I sure as hell am not one of those." "So now what?" The goons grinned. "We send a message about wearing red shoes in public." Izuku's eyes went wide as the goons grabbed their tools and went to work. Eventually, a broken and bruised Izuku was left tied up in a warehouse, fading in out of awareness until a woman with a whip appeared in his view, wearing a very tight outfit. If he was not bleeding internally, he would have blushed. The pro-hero Midnight said, "Oh my, aren't we banged up?" Izuku managed to groan out, "No hospital," before he was met with glorious darkness. Izuku was not dead, which he supposed was a plus. He seemed to be lying on something soft, which was also good. He gently opened his eyes to see he was on a cot of some kind, like in doctors' offices, at least from what he can recall from when he was last allowed in one. Midnight was reading some swimsuit fashion magazine, an older issue. Izuku knew that because of the stained case, not for any other reason. He blushed with a groan. He can't even lie in his own head. Speaking of lying, the doctor entered and he did a double take, half shouting, "Recovery Girl, the youthful heroine!" Recovery Girl laughed. "That's right, dearie, now who are you?" Izuku figured it was a good idea to maintain the story he told earlier just to be safe. "Ryuzaki, thank you for helping me." Midnight bent over provocatively. Izuku noted most likely she knew he was lying and was hoping her sex appeal would throw him off. It was working. Izuku stumbled. "I really need to go. My mom must be really worried about me." Midnight licked her lips. "Really, Ryuzaki-chan, you can't stay a tiny bit longer?" Izuku shook his head. "You know how protective moms are." Midnight walked forward. "A mama's boy, huh? I still need to know how you ended up in a warehouse beaten with an inch of your life, and not in a fun way," she finished with a wink. Izuku knew he was in a bad spot, so he decided on the only thing he could. He shoved an instrument table at Midnight and bolted. Bursting out of Recovery Girl's clinic, he hopped a railing and ducked down a few side street, eventually skidding to a stop in front of a subway station. The street was deserted. He looked at the rooftops and did not see Midnight standing there like Batman. Or Catwoman, he supposed. He ducked into the station and headed for home. Midnight held up her phone as Aizawa grunted. "What?" Midnight scoffed. "Shota, is that any way to talk to your bestie?" Aizawa grumbled. "I'm hanging up," Midnight said. "Hold it, I meant someone interesting today, green hair, said his name was Ryuzaki." Aizawa asked. "How did you meet him?" Midnight replied. "Someone beat the ever-living hell out of him. He croaked out a request for no hospitals. And judging by his red shoes, most likely a good idea." Aizawa groaned. "So you took him to Recovery Girls?" Midnight clicked her tongue. "Yep, he then told me his name, tried to say his mom was worried before bolting, kids fast, lost him at one point." Aizawa grumbled. "Problem child. Well, Midnight, you just met L?" Midnight asked. "Wait, L? Like super genius, possibly smarter than the rat L?" Aizawa answered. "Yep, I think so." Midnight let up. "L is an adorable middle schooler. I love him already," Aizawa pointed out. "A quirkless middle schooler." Midnight deflated. "Poor kid, this is all he has, isn't it?" Aizawa said sincerely. Logically I know it is, but I really hope not. Izuku had lied to his mom saying he got caught up watching hero fights, and texted Ūriक़ᴜ. Sorry, things got a bit crazy on my way home, I will tell you more later. Ūriक़ᴜ texted him. Izuku! What did I say about scaring me? Izuku returned. In my defense, for once it was not actually my fault. Ūriक़ᴜ returned. Grrrr. Izuku went pale and shivered. She is going to kick my ass, isn't she? Silence met him, which was good, otherwise he would be going crazy, and he does not need that right now. Izuku booted up his computer, putting on some pre-Quirk music, grumbling. The hell kind of name is the Quirk Hunters anyway? Izuku started twirling a pencil in his left hand, a fork in his right hand. He started to eat his dinner, as he started to look into the group that attacked him. Yue. Midnight teased. Oh, did he reach out to you, with another half-ass cover story? He is precious. Aizawa grunted. L emailed saying he got a tip about a gang calling themselves the Quirk Hunters. He plans to share the details in a minute. Midnight licked her lips. Voice changers really do it for me. Aizawa looked at her and let out a long, suffering sigh. One day I will figure out who annoys me more, you or Joke. Midnight teased. If you ever figure it out, let us know, we need to settle the bet after all. Aizawa slammed his head on the table with a groan as the projector spun to life and the letter L appeared. Hello, heroes. Midnight posed seductively. Hello, handsome. L stuttered. Hi, Midnight, nice to meet you. Midnight smirked. Oh, this poor kid, Aizawa stated. Problem child, why are you making me brave Midnight and cutting into my nap time? L said quickly. Right, sorry about that. Recently there has been an uptick of anti-quirkless hate crimes. I know, and the sky is blue and there are 7 days in a week, so what? Aizawa and Midnight looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes. Knowing that L is quirkless, L kept talking. Well, for starters, 12 quirkless bodies have been dropped. All of them have their red shoes shoved into their mouths as much as possible. All the deaths have been ruled as suicides, and the murders are all spread out, and much more well put together than any hate crime should be. L awkwardly added. Not that I think hate crimes should be better thought out. Midnight smiled, muttering. He is adorable. L kept going. Now when it comes to the quirkless, well, there are not a lot of people who care. In fact, just about no one does. So I could tell the police about these crimes, but there is a non-0% chance they will not follow it at all. L said quietly. These people need to be stopped, these Quirk Hunters, before they hurt anyone else. I just hope you guys can. I have to go, but I will keep digging. The way these guys move and work, it's different from normal hate crimes. L out. The email appeared in Aizawa's email account, before L logged out. Midnight stated. He trusted us with this, we can't let him down. Aizawa agreed. No, we cannot. Train yard. Ūriक़ᴜ asked. Are you sure this is okay? Izuku sat on the edge of a train car saying, This place got bombed out during the dark age of quirks, and then the government just forgot about it. Perfect spot to train. Ūriक़ᴜ looked at the pile of garbage and said, What exactly are we training? Izuku grinned. Well, Yue, your entrance exam is in 2 months. You have been doing a good job so far, but here we can increase your weight limit, control, experiment with your quirk. Ūriक़ᴜ looked around, seeing scorch marks on some of the old train cars. You have brought other people here before? Haven't you? Izuku looked down. Kaken, my best friend. Ūriक़ᴜ asked. What happened to him? Izuku waved his hand. Nothing bad, his folks work in fashion, he moved away when we were 10. Ūriक़ᴜ asked. You miss him? Izuku laughed. Oh hell yeah, Kaken was the best. He would kick my bullies' asses, even as he called me a damn nerd. Izuku looked down. He was always looking out for me, even when we were little, saying I was a damn nerd too smart for his own good. He would look out for me. We were going to be heroes together, then I turned out to be quirkless. And he promised to kick the ass of every asshole who looked down on people like me when he became number 1. Izuku snorted. He could do it too. His quirk was something else. Before it met you, he was the only friend I ever had. Ūriक़ᴜ hugged him. I'm so sorry the world has been unkind to you. Izuku returned the squeeze before saying, The world is unkind to everyone. I deserve no special treatment. Ūriqᴜᴜ wanted to call BS on this, but Izuku already pulled out his laptop saying, "Let's get started. Mom says I need more sunlight, and while maybe watching you train while I work may help, L." He finished with a blush. Ūriqᴜᴜ touched a piece of sheet metal, making it float, trying to manipulate it, as Izuku started to type, quickly mumbling. Nizu was very curious about L. You would be hard-pressed to find any pro heroes who are not. Except maybe Endeavor. So when he found out ᴚᴜᴜ and Midnight were sneaking around a small conference room, well, his mind started buzzing, so he was hiding in a vent watching ᴚᴜᴜ and Midnight get ready before the projector spun to life and Gothic L appeared. Nizu smiled and settled in to watch. L's feed was a bit noisier than usual, with the distorted sounds of whoops and what might be birds in the background. ᴚᴜᴜ asked, "You okay, L?" L answered, "Yes, sorry about the noise. I was forced to go outside and get some sun, so I'm in a secure location, helping my friend with her quirk training." ᴚᴜᴜ grunted, and Midnight grinned like the Cheshire Cat. Her? L quickly changed the topic. "So the quirk hunters." Midnight pouted. "Killjoy." A noise was heard and L called, "Good job, now on to something heavier. And make sure you call me L." Another noise was heard and L groaned. "Yes, I will tell them you said hi. No, you can't have their numbers. I don't care if you're going to conspire to make me value myself. Damn it, I did not mute myself." Midnight let out a light chuckle and ᴚᴜᴜ said, "Problem child." L said quickly, "Right, let's pretend you guys did not hear that. So all the victims were quirkless, right?" ᴚᴜᴜ grunted. "Yes, they were." L nodded. "Like most quirkless people, they were older, the youngest known victim being about 38, the oldest being 71. There are 12 victims, 6 of whom worked for one support company." Midnight asked. "A support company?" L answered. "The support company that has the rights to build the quirkless shoes in Japan, the Yaoyorozu Group. At first I figured it was some kind of coincidence. But then I was able to dig up other odd factors involved with their deaths." L explained. "These murders can be divided into 2 camps, one's more typical for mass mob-like action, where the victims suffer cuts, bruises, broken bones and other injuries before death, and the other camp, where they suffer these injuries after death, in order to fit in with a pattern." ᴚᴜᴜ asked. "And the deaths of the support company employees are the later?" L shuffled, saying, "Yes, all 6 of those murders are more efficient, a needle mark on the neck, with heavy sedative in the system, taken to a secondary location and murdered, and then beat up to make it look like a hate crime. But why? These people are efficient and effective. If they wanted to simply kill quirkless people, there are easier ways to. That does not even chance a sympathetic officer or hero running into the case and digging deeper." L said, "Yes, thank you, I am a bit peckish." There were the sounds of him chewing before saying, "Sorry, my friend offered me a snack bar. The only solution is that the other murders are trendsetters. They exist simply to blend into the background of an uncaring world." L grumbled. "So the other murders we can discount as being little more than wrong time, wrong place. Perhaps an actual mob was involved in the attacks, likely started by these more professional killers, but the other victims were targeted specifically?" "Why?" Midnight asked. "What did they do at Yaoyorozu?" L typed. "It says here they worked in R&D, nothing classified or sensitive. They were well liked by their coworkers, and Yaoyorozu has a very strict policy against quirkism, so they were not targeted from within or because of their work." ᴚᴜᴜ asked. "So what did they work on?" L typed some more before saying, "Quirkless shoe designs, updates and models for quirkless people with minor mutant features, such as webbed double toes. If they could mass produce it, it would certainly change the footwear industry, not just for quirkless people." Midnight asked. "Could it be someone is trying to prevent them from completing that development? Competition, maybe?" L responded. "Maybe Yaoyorozu Group controls the building of quirkless shoes, but their market share in the industry as a whole is limited. Current market leader for mutant-type shoes and general footwear development is the Yotsuba Group, and they know it. Look at these prices." ᴚᴜᴜ said. "Keeping Yaoyorozu out of their coffers is a solid motive." L added, "If the dev team were just to disappear, That would raise some eyebrows, maybe even point their way, but they get caught up in a string of antiquarkless hate crimes, tough luck. L sighed. But we can't prove any of this. The developer's deaths just so happen to benefit Yotsuba, but it does not prove anything. We need evidence. Aizawa grumbled. We need to get one of their teams, we make them talk, and we have a case. L responded. Easier said than done. We don't know who they will strike next. There are overall a smaller number of quirkless people, but still far too many to try to cover without anything more to a victim profile than just quirkless. Midnight grinned. So we give them a target, get Power Loader to build a pair of red shoes. Give them to Mike. Aizawa hid his smile in his scarf as L bulked at the idea in the background. Niza smiled wider. Oh yes, this L is something. Izuku walked home with Ūrarika next to him. She was tired but pumped up. Ūrarika smirked at him. Call me L. Really? Izuku blushed. Don't want them to hear my real name. Ūrarika shook her head. You're a fucking dork, you know that, right? Izuku grinned lightly. That is maybe the nicest way I have ever been insulted. Ūrarika rolled her eyes. Whatever their bud. Ūrarika touched his shoulder. But for real? Are you okay? You got kidnapped and tortured. Izuku laughed it off. Between you and me, not my first time. Ūrarika glared. You had better either cough up names or be joking. Izuku blushed as Ūrarika punched the air. Very funny, Achicho. Ūrarika growled. Who said I was joking? Izuku started walking faster, and Ūrarika caught up to him, grabbing his hand. I'm really happy you trusted me with this, Izuku. I know I kind of forced myself into your life. Izuku turned around, meeting Ūrarika's blush with his own. I should be thanking you. You're the second friend I have ever had, and the first one in years. Ūrarika hid her blush in her arms, saying, I'm here for as long as you want me to be. Izuku said dumbly. Well, then you're going to be here for a while, because I never want you to leave. The two stared at each other dumbly. Izuku turned even redder, realizing what he just said, bolted, saying, Got to get home. See you tomorrow. Ūrarika watched him go before saying, Sure, cool, and then promptly screamed into her arm. 1 week later. The van was large and quiet. Inside was present Mike, in civilian clothes and the bright red shoes of the quirkless. He was on his phone. Aizawa was napping in a sleeping bag, and Midnight sat against the wall in the van. At the end of the van was the laptop with L's logo glowing slightly in the darkness. Midnight teased. L, you dog, you told her you want her to stay with you forever? L groaned. You promised not to tease. Come on, Midnight, I may have really screwed it up here. Midnight laughed. Oh, do you want advice for first date spots? Best way to kiss? L sighed. She's the only girl aside from my mom I have talked to for any length of time. What if I screwed it up, and she hates me now, because I'm a clingy sad mess? Midnight said simply. Oh, you need to talk to her. This awkward tension exists between you two for the last week is because you have not been able to talk to her. If she is half the girl you spent the last week gushing about, then she will be more than happy to talk it out with you. L's voice was quiet, more childlike than normal in spite of the voice changer. Midnight, I'm scared. L sounded like tears were in his eyes. She's the only friend I have. Mom is already so worried about me. If I lose my only friend again, she will be even more worried, and... Midnight cut him off. Breath from me, L, okay. First off, she is not your only friends. You have us and the rest of the hero community. L scoffed. Yeah, for now. Midnight brushed past that comment, saying, L, mothers worry, that's their job, and it's okay to be scared. You would be a fool not to be, but you cannot let fear control you. L inhaled then exhaled before saying, Yeah, you are right. Midnight winked. I always am. Aizawa stirred in his sleeping bag. Yeah, right. Midnight snorted. Sleeping bag man lives. Aizawa grumbled. We have been at this for a week. You think this is the right place? L answered. One way to find out. Mike said. Still not happy I'm the bait. Aizawa smiled. You're the one who said you would be happy to do anything for our secretive listener. L called. Good luck, Mike. I will be watching on the cameras. Mike got out of the van with a wave. ᴊᴟᴜ also slipped out of the van to shadow Mike. Midnight stayed with L to move the van and to gas the targets if need be. About 2 hours of Mike walking around the area. Later L called. I might have something. Mike 10 meters behind, guy in an all-black, white van pulling around in front, another guy in the alley to the left. No idea on the third guy. Mike muttered. Got it, L. L responded. Erase her head, let them grab Mike and lead him to the van, we need to get all of them, sorry Mike. Mike laughed. Betrayed by the listener. Aizawa grunted. Pipe down Mike, got it L. L then said. Midnight, we should get closer, we want to scope these guys up quickly, just in case they have backup. Midnight moved out of view saying. Right, in motion. Aizawa called. They grabbed Mike, dragging him toward the van. It pulled up, all targets in the area. L said with venom. Take him. Mike yelled. Yeah. Blasting one of the goons in front of him, as Aizawa's capture scarf wrapped around another goon, as he appeared his hair floating. Aizawa hit another thug in the face wrapping them in his scarf, before Mike punched the last one in the face as Midnight pulled up with the van. They threw the goons inside before climbing in, speeding off. L said with relief. Well done everyone, now then, why don't we see who they work for? Next day. Izuku walks through Alderaan Middle School keeping his head down, as someone watches the news on the phone talking about the police and heroes arresting several members of the Yotsuba business group. The guys cracked under pressure very quickly and told them everything, another case closed. Sadly, his personal life was less easy to close than cases. He had not had the chance to talk to Uraraka today, and had been rehearsing what he wants to say with Midnight last night. Izuku muttered. Hey Uraraka, I want to talk to you about what I said the other day. I just want you to know I value you as a friend a lot. Izuku trailed off. This was so much easier when he practices with Midnight. Then he heard a voice. I know Izuku. Izuku jumped seeing a blushing Uraraka. I know what you meant. I know you about a lot of things, but are terrible with girls and say things, it's okay. Izuku looked down. I'm sorry I scared you. Uraraka blushed. You did not scare me, Izuku. Izuku smiled brightly. Great! Then nothing to worry about. Sweet! Friendship not ruined. While Midnight was right for once. Uraraka asked carefully. Oh, what else did she say? Izuku shrugged, packing it up. Something about us having feelings for each other, and summer romance. She offered to give me the talk. It was very awkward. Uraraka tried very hard not to think about Izuku holding her hand in a field of flowers, on a warm summer day. Yeah, what a joker. Izuku fired some finger guns saying, We'll have to do more Quirk training later, I got to run. Promised Mom I would work on the taxes today. See you on the flip side. Izuku hurried out of the school lighter on his feet. Uraraka groaned, both thanking and cursing Midnight. Uraraka lay on Izuku's bed saying, I wish I was dead. Izuku deadpanned from his desk. Mood. Uraraka glared at him, and he rolled his eyes. What's wrong, oh wise one? Uraraka groaned. I totally failed the entrance exam. Izuku asked. Want me to hack UA and find out? Uraraka asked. You can do that? Izuku did not answer, and she groaned. No, that might hurt my shot at getting into Gen Ed. Izuku shook his head. You're fine, you killed it. Uraraka grumbled. I destroyed the 0-pointer, to save some girl, costing my chance to get points. Izuku turned around in his chair. And was it worth it? Uraraka asked. Huh? Izuku rolled his eyes. You saved someone, you know, like a hero, think it through, you're going to a hero school so... Uraraka's eyes went wide. Why would they not reward heroic actions? Izuku added. Grain of salt, we both know the world is not fair, but you might be okay. Uraraka hugged him. Izuku, thank you. I'm going to UA. Izuku hugged her back. You're going to UA. Uraraka sighed. I wish you could. Izuku shrugged. Yeah, well, in spite of Ni's efforts, the heroic public education committee barely budged on letting mutants in, never mind quirkless. Uraraka grunted. What a bunch of fucking assholes. Izuku chuckled. Yep, don't worry about me, I have already been doing freelance programming work for years, and when they found out L is a middle schooler they insisted on paying me for my efforts, so I will be okay. ᴅᴜ crossed her arms. How much money do you have anyway? Izuku blinked. On me, 10,000 yen? ᴅᴜ rolled her eyes. No, in your secret untraceable L account. Izuku sat up straight. Not too much. ᴅᴜ leaned closer. Is that like you saying you're not smart? Izuku said quietly. 42 billion yen. ᴅᴜ's eyes went wide. You're not rich, my ass. Izuku looked down. I have solved a lot of cases. ᴅᴜ laughed. Yeah, no kidding, you are buying me dinner. Izuku blushed. What? ᴅᴜ was undaunted. Consider it a celebration of getting into UA. Now come on, dork, we're getting high-end sushi. Izuku was dragged out of his room as ᴅᴜ called. Inko, I'm dragging Izuku out for food. Inko gave her a thumbs up over Izuku's protests. 2 weeks later. The laptop with L's symbol on it glowed gently as the disguised voice said, I know you want them to take it seriously, but come on. Expelled on the first day on a subjective judgment. How is that logical? Aizawa grunted. I did not call you to get lectured about my teaching practices. Also, how do you even know about that? L answered. Figure it out, logical ruse boy. Aizawa pitched his nose. Problem child. L cut him off. So what are we looking at? Aizawa answered. Have you heard of SMERSH? L asked. The Soviet Counterintelligence Agency? Aizawa blinked. What? No, they are a serial killer the media refer to as SMERSH. L wondered. The media called them SMERSH? Why? Aizawa sent a file saying, every body they drop they leave a toe tag on them somewhere with the Russian phrase. L cut him off. Smrt spionum, roughly translating to death to spies. Odd choice of signature? L started to mumble. Any of the victims have intelligence ties? Aizawa shook his head. No, only one was a government employee. They worked as a file clerk in the Bureau of Quirks, the rest ranged from bartenders to stockbrokers. None of them had anything of value to any government agency, foreign or domestic. L took a sip of something. Which means that we are dealing with someone who thinks they are spies, or they are spies just not in the sense we are thinking of, perhaps industrial espionage. Or someone trying to produce the image of a feared Soviet agency, which is odd. It's been several centuries, and SMRSH is not that well known in the age of quirks. L took another sip. So someone interested in ancient Russia, most notably Soviet history? Possible background in it? A northerner? We should start with people who study or specialize in 20th century Russian history, and cross-reference them with our victims. It is possible that they don't mean death to spies in the literal sense. They could mean traitors? How did each of the victims die? Aizawa said. Victims 1 to 6 were poisoned, victim 7 was shot, 8 and 9 were stabbed, and victim 10, the last one, was pushed off a building. L was surprised. That's a large variety, for lack of a better word, and unusual for a serial killer. More than one person. Possibly, could also be an increase in confidence and or situation making the riskier method preferred. L paused. I will keep at it, but you have a class eraser since you didn't expel everyone this year. Have fun. Aizawa grumbled. Problem child. UA gate. ᴅᴜ left the gate. With a buff-looking guy with blue hair and glasses next to her, Izuku waved at her, and ᴅᴜ waved back and Izuku approached. Day 2, huh? Less stressful than yesterday? ᴅᴜ laughed. We were not threatened with expulsion. Izuku chuckled. That's good. Blue hair cleared his throat. Who is this ᴅᴜ? ᴅᴜ blushed. Right, sorry, Ida, this is Izuku Midoryia, my first friend in this new city. Izuku fired him a wave, asking, Ida? Where have I heard that name before? Ida jumped him with an air arm chop. Pleasure to meet you, Midoryia. Where are you going to school? Izuku looked down. I'm kind of not. Ida proclaimed. Education is critical to success. Then he saw the red shoes, and looked down. ᴅᴜ laughed. Izuku is smarter than our entire class combined. He graduated high school at age 6. Izuku blushed. Not that impressive. Ida cut him off. No, it is. I'm sorry, Midoryia, I let the fact you are quirkless color my view of you briefly. That is not only a poor outlook for a hero, but a bad way to be a friend. Izuku blinked. We are friends? Ida laughed. I would like us to be. Ūraraka cut off Izuku's reply. He is okay with being friends with you, he is just not the best socially. Izuku blushed. Hey. Ūraraka teased. Am I wrong? Izuku looked down. No. Ūraraka grinned. Great, now man, do we have a story to tell you, Izuku? All Might is teaching. And yes, we got you an autograph. Izuku was dragged down the street as Ida followed diligently, defending All Might and adding details. That night, L asked casually, Are you a cat guy eraser? You seem like a cat guy. Aizawa asked. What? L said. Well, this is what the 4th case we have had together. And I know nothing about you, and yes, the irony is not lost on me. The sound of typing filled L's side of the call. Aizawa shrugged. I like cats, sure, don't have a lot of time to take care of them. You? L responded. I'm not allowed to adopt animals, but I could go for a goldfish. Aizawa groaned. Right, quirkless people are not allowed to own pets, something to do with everyone thinking they will abuse the quirk animals out of jealousy. Yep, animals have more rights in this world than L does. Aizawa wants to scream. L ate something asking. So how is your new batch of kiddos, any standouts? He asked carefully. Aizawa asked. Why do you want to know? Aizawa could feel L's blush through the screen. Oh, no reason, just want to know about the next generation of people I can bully into telling me their favorite color or whatever. Also black, really? That's a shade. Aizawa hid his fond smile in his scarf, saying, They seem to have potential. L snorted. Wow, high praise. Aizawa grunted. L, could we get to business? L groaned. No one ever calls me just to say hi, but fine. I looked into the victims. Their lives have virtually no overlap, different classes, social circles, you name it. You will note that I said virtually, because get this, they were all in the same place at the same time exactly one time, 18 months ago. Aizawa grinned. L was becoming more comfortable talking to some heroes as his friends, his frequent flyers as he puts it. He is willing to be more open and joking, as opposed to stiff and professional with them. That is progress to L opening up. L carried on. They were all in the Museum of Pre-Quirk History on the same day, right before the museum was closed for emergency maintenance. Aizawa paused. I vaguely remember that some exhibit was dangerous. L agreed. That was the rumor. Also, they had opened a new exhibit that when the museum reopened was no longer present. That exhibit on the Soviet Union. Aizawa nodded. So that's our SMRSH connection. L took another bite of something. That seems to be the case, but the question is, what caused the exhibit to close, and why have these people been murdered? Are they responsible for it somehow? That would be logical due to the messages, but I failed to see how. They have no power over the museum board, and their quirks would not affect anything. L swallowed his food, adding, Sorry about that. Maybe they overheard something and reported it. Hence them being spies? Or perhaps they learned something in confidence and revealed it, thus being traitors. Or maybe our suspect is delusional and is under the impression these people are somehow responsible for the exhibit closing down. L shuffled some papers. Of the people involved with only this exhibit, 3 names stand out as having possible motive. First up is Dr. Jodie Pierce, American and Japanese dual citizen, who was the museum board member who authorized the exhibit. She has since lost her power and has been deposed, and is quite bitter about it, but bitter enough for not just murder, but serial murder? And random citizens as opposed to members of the board that deposed her at that. Aizawa opened the file that L had sent on Dr. Pierce, and while she did have the motive, he agreed with L it did not quite fit. L moved on. Next up is a former security guard, Takushi Hanabishi, 25 years old, single, and notably unstable. His quirk allows him to produce needles from his fingertips which can be dipped in various poisons. He was rejected from every hero school and even the police academy, he claims, because of his quirk, and for the schools he is right. Well, in Yue's case he failed the exams, and for the police academy he failed the psych eval. Shortly after the exhibit closed he was fired, for distressing the patrons. Exactly how is not known. He was stationed in the Soviet exhibit. L concluded. It's possible that he distressed our victims and was pushed over the edge enough to start killing, and his quirk fits with the first 6 victims. But if he is our killer, why would he have switched methods? L groaned. He could work, but he almost feels too easy. Maybe a frame job? Assuming anyone other than us made this connection, would they look at anyone else after seeing what I just read out, or would they simply arrest Hanabishi and call it a day? I think we both know the answer. Aizawa agreed. He is worth looking deeper into. But I think you're right, it almost feels staged. L took a sip of something, saying, and behind door number 3 we have Dr. Teiji Mashiro, expert on the Soviet Union. This exhibit was his life's work, and when it was cancelled he was taken to the hospital for a time. Why is not known. Afterwards he resigned from the museum, and has since become a bit of a recluse. He has the motive and the opportunity, but does he have the means? L gasped. Now that's interesting. Hanabishi was fired the day before Mashiro resigned. Mashiro was the one who did the firing, as the former overall supervisor of the location where Hanabishi worked. Could it be? Mashiro is rushed to the hospital after pouring his blood, sweat and tears into an exhibit which is swiftly closed for unknown reasons, this reason likely caused by our victims, and lying in that hospital room comes up with a plan. L mumbled faster. To get revenge, to destroy those that dared defy his life's work. He would bring death to the spies and counter-revolutionaries who had ended his work. But he knew if the people who ruined his exhibit all of a sudden started dying they would figure out it was him. But then he had the perfect patsy. He plays dumb and vulnerable young man plays the sap. He fabricates a complaint, and uses it to fire the young man with a villainous quirk and the ability to murder easily. L paused. So why smirch spionem? Was it for himself? His own satisfaction? Maybe he was banking on any investigators to be blinded by their quirkism to look too deeply, if they even bother to learn what it means. L resumed his mumbling. But at some point the way the killing was done changed. Why? He made no effort to not link the killings. The toe tags were still left on the bodies. Did he think the first 6 bodies were enough to frame Hanabishi? The next victim was shot? Perhaps he intended to poison this one as well, but was unable to. Maybe he was taken by surprise before he could deliver the poison and resorted to a backup. L shifted. Yes, that's it. He was forced to use his gun and shoot his victim. And then what? He could have gone back to using poison? Was he afraid that something could be gathered by a return to poisoning? Possibly, or perhaps he simply enjoyed the more up-close and personal kills more. L took a sip. Was that it? Was he having fun with it now? Smirch spionem ranging through his head as he worked, a smile crossing his face as he brought about his own brand of justice. So much so that he wanted his victims to know they were dead, and who had done it. L requested, we need to find out why he was in the hospital and why the exhibit closed, and how our victims were involved. These are the key pieces to closing this case. Aizawa agreed. Right, start looking into that. I will arrange for the hospital records to be sent your way. L laughed. Thanks, Eraser. Well, I'm hoping off for now. Be nice to your kids. Aizawa grunted, sure. L logged off, and Aizawa not for the first time wished he was one of his students. Yue gates. Izuku saw the gate was missing. That was weird. Yue's security is top-notch. Could it be some kind of attack? Was ᴅᴜᴜ okay? Ida too, of course. Izuku let out a cough and ᴅᴜᴜ appeared and waved at him saying, Izuku. Izuku waved back asking, what happened here? Ida grumbled. A group of reporters heard about All Might teaching here, and were quite eager for an interview. Izuku mumbled, yeah, that's rough. ᴅᴜᴜ asked, so what have you been up to? Izuku shrugged, oh, you know, working hard, haha. Ida asked with interest, oh, what is it you do? Izuku blushed, just some freelance work. ᴅᴜᴜ rolled her eyes, but kept his secret saying, Ida here was elected student president. Izuku grinned. Congrats. Ida bowed. I just hope I can keep the faith that was placed in me. Izuku laughed. You're worried about it, that's a good sign. Ūraraka grinned. You want to hear who has the coolest quirk in the class? Izuku smiled. Do go on? Ūraraka laughed. So his name is Shinso, he is pretty much mini Aizawa, and his quirk is brainwashing. If he asks a question and anyone answers, he can control them. Izuku's eyes were like diamonds. What? That's amazing. Just think of the incidents that can be solved instantly. Ūraraka laughed as Ida added, Indeed, he has a rough past with quirkism but a bright future as a hero. Izuku shook his head. Don't we all? As the small group walked towards the station with Ida going back to his home and Ūraraka and Izuku going back to their neighborhood. Next day, L asked, Eraser, am I using you? Aizawa looked up from his deck of cards. What do you mean, L? L's disguised voice scoffed. Come on, Eraser, we both know what I mean. L is built on a lie, and you know it, and yet you still work with me. Why? Do you think I have something on you or something? Aizawa said simply. Do you think that lowly of me? That I would not want to work with the world's greatest detective, just because he is quirkless? L sighed. Honestly? Aizawa replied. Honestly? L answered. Why wouldn't you? No one else has? Being smart has counted for exactly nothing my whole life. And you're underground, you know what the stats are for the quirkless, and with how I am, without L I'm either going to be dead or a villain. You keep L fed and the world wins, at least for a little while. L added. You don't need to hide it anymore. I have been using you for a sense of belonging, to not be a quirkless Deku, to be the hero I never could be. But don't worry, I'm not going to be a villain when you tell me to screw off. Feel free to tell anyone who will listen, L is fake, he always was. Aizawa held up his hand. Is this why you have been asking so much personal stuff, trying to figure out if I really liked you, or if I was just putting up with you? L sighed. Yeah, sorry. Aizawa replied. Don't say you're sorry, the world has done nothing but kick you down, but you still get back up, and to answer your question, L, no, you are not using me. If anything, we are using you. You are brilliant, talented, and a good kid, and if you know me, saying that means something. L seemed a little choked up. You're the third adult I have ever met who said anything like that. Aizawa felt his heart break a little. I'm sorry, L, I really am. L let out a little laugh. Yeah, me too, L said. Be right back. About a minute later, L came back saying, Thanks for saying that, Eraser. Aizawa said honestly. I meant it. L exhaled. Going to make me cry in my mom's arms again, Eraser. She wants to send you a fruit basket, by the way. Izuku half joked. Aizawa snorted. I will settle for you still helping us with cases. L snorted. I can handle that, speaking of. There was a sound of shuffling before L spoke again. Looking into the hospital records, Mashiro is sick, cancer untreatable even by quirks, he does not have long to live. Aizawa paused. Really? L agreed. Yeah, weird, right? Especially when I got a hold of some x-rays. Get this. This guy was filled to fucking brim with tumors, every internal organ you care to name. Aizawa asked. So he is dying? How is that relevant to this case? L answered. That's the neat part. It both is and isn't. He has seen doctors rather often over the last 5 years or so, for, get this, radiation poisoning. The kind that comes with being near an unstable fission reactor. Aizawa asked. A fission reactor? Why on earth would he be near one of those? L grinned. Because someone screwed up. 5 years ago, the museum acquired a piece of Soviet tech, a fission bomb from the 1950s. The thing is, the guy they got it from, his quirk allows him to absorb radiation, so he was under the impression it was no longer active, and when they tested it with him present, Aizawa's eyes went wide. No radiation. L clicked his tongue. Bingo, the unnamed closure was when the device was discovered to be an active atomic weapon. By the victims, who came up with a plan. They distracted the guard and stole the weapon to sell on the black market. Aizawa swore. Fuck. L answered. After Mashiro was rushed to the hospital, they found out exactly what is wrong and what was stolen. The exhibit was shut down to screen out the radiation and check the other items. Mashiro and Hanabishi met and knew how bad this was. They needed to find the weapon and turn it into the authorities, and also kill the men responsible, otherwise a disaster could occur. So the plan was simple: Hanabishi gets to be a hero and gets out of the victims where the device is, and then kills them, and then when they have the device, the terminally ill Mashiro turns himself and the device in. Wrapped up in a nice little bow. L smirked. He would claim the same thread I was on, that he was planning on framing Hanabishi for all of it, and getting revenge for them stealing the centerpiece of his great work, or something of the sort, using ᴅᴇᴟᴏ as his mistake, the one thing that links to him. L added. Odds are he would die before he could even go to trial. Aizawa asked. So we have them? L answered. Yep, I tracked both of their phones. They are meeting in a seedy hotel on the edge of town for the trade-off of the items later today. Why are they waiting so long? No idea. Dramatic effect maybe? I would bring midnight, and call the bomb squad. Aizawa was already moving. Right on it. Aizawa rushed out of the small break room and sprinted toward Midnight's class, figuring he should grab Cementas as well. L sighed. Goodbye as well. And logged off. Midoriya apartment. Ūraraka looked at him. So yeah, Aizawa took off something, about an urgent case. Izuku looked anywhere but her face. Oh really? Ūraraka crossed her arms. What case was it? Izuku blushed. Soviet nukes. Ūraraka's eyes went wide. Holy fucking shit balls. Izuku! Did you save the city? She grabbed his hands, looking eager. Izuku went redder. Most likely not. They just wanted to sell a museum piece what turned out to be an active nuke. Ūraraka let go. Still amazing. Izuku looked down. I told Aizawa I'm quirkless. He already knew, but I asked him if I was using him, if he only asked for my help because he was scared of me. Ūraraka asked. And what did he say? Izuku started to tear up. He said no, it was because I'm smart and hard-working, and a good kid. Ūraraka pulled him into a hug. It's okay. I know how big of a deal that is for you. Izuku started to bawl. He actually likes me, Achicho. Me, the quirkless Deku. They know I'm not like them, and he does not care. Ūraraka pulled Izuku deeper into the hug. I know, Izuku, I know. Izuku muttered. If Eraser knows, odds are all the teachers do, and they feel the same way. They value me, even though I'm quirkless. Ūraraka pulls away. And you deserve it. Izuku mumbles. Thank you for sticking by me when I'm like this. Ūraraka smiled. There is nothing to thank, you're my friend Izuku. Izuku smiled back. They were floating in each other's space. So close. Izuku jumped out of her face, blushing. Oh crap, I did not even ask about you. I'm so sorry. Ūraraka laughed. It's okay, you dork. My day was normal. Tomorrow I'm going to the USJ. I get to meet 13. Izuku lit up. Your 13 is the best. Ūraraka laughed. Yes, she is. Izuku squeezed her hand. Mom should be done dinner soon. Join us for food? Ūraraka looked down. I can't. Mom and Dad want me home for dinner. Izuku nodded. Okay. Izuku walked her to the door. They hugged again before Ūraraka said, See you tomorrow? Izuku nodded. Would not mess it. Ūraraka smiled, heading for the stairs. Have a nice night, Izuku. I will give you 13's autograph after the USJ. Izuku watched Ūraraka walk down the stairs towards home. Izuku closed the door, feeling an odd tightness in his chest. At first Izuku was worried, then he was mad. Aizawa and Ūraraka are hurt. They are in the hospital because villains attacked the USJ. And since he is quirkless, he can even go visit them. He wants to scream, to yell and punch. But he knows that's not going to be productive. But he can do something that is. Izuku calls Midnight on the phone he uses as L, saying, Hello Midnight, this is L. I'm sure you know why I'm calling. Yue. The symbol lit up the staff room the evening of the USJ attack, the L on a white background harsh against the lowering sun. L said with a disguised voice. Thank you for allowing me to assist with this investigation. Niza bared his teeth. You're welcome, L. I was hoping we could work together soon, but not under these circumstances. L responded. Indeed. Also, Power Loader, thank you for checking the USJ sensors for me. It is good to know that they still recorded but were unable to transmit. Power Loader shrugged. You're welcome, L. Midnight asked. So, L, what do you think? L exhaled before saying, either these guys are morons, or killing All Might, in spite of what they claim was not the goal. A skinny blonde guy coughed up some blood as L explained. They knew All Might and a small group of teachers will be there and isolated, but they decided to recruit a large group of low-tier villains as their attack plan? Little trust and even less coordination. L mumbled. If they wanted to kill All Might, they could have and should have just teleported in a bomb. It blows the USJ, the teachers, the students, all of it straight to the hot place, ideally killing but at the very last weakening All Might to be followed up by the Nomu. Job done quick, easy, untraceable. ᴄᴟ added. But they didn't. L agreed. But they didn't, which means either they didn't think about that when they planned this attack or they had another goal in mind. The combat commander has been described as childish and impulsive. It is unlikely he planned this mission or was able to convince the villains low level or not to follow him. Most villains said they were hired through a front. I looked into it, and it is naturally no longer active. L paused. They all opted to not say anything when captured, while almost all of them, when villain demanded protection from the one who takes. A pre-Quirk urban legend about someone who can steal/give quirks. The villain in question does have a history of paranoid delusions, so a grain of salt. But advancing on the premise that some kind of ancient supervillain is responsible for the attacks, we come to the conclusion that this lackluster plan was the result of hubris. Present Mike asked. But if it's not this ancient evil, L answered, then it is likely that they had some other goal in mind with this attack. Frankly, killing All Might would be bad for both criminals and normal citizens, while some short-sighted criminals would be very happy to see the symbol of peace dead. Most career or skilled criminals, which one would have to be to plan this mission, would see the chaos in Japan and the world, for it would be bad for business. L mumbled. So short of simply causing chaos, what other motive could someone have to attack the USJ but not UA proper, to make it seem like an attack but not follow through? Discrediting UA? A rival school? No, that's insane. Sending a message? No one is safe? Possibly, but why not use a bomb? Getting someone's attention? The entire world is watching UA now? But whose? ᴄᴟ? All Might? L trailed off, typing filled the air as he hummed. Well, now that's interesting. ᴄᴟ asked. L explained. ᴄᴟ, did you read the paper on the generation of artificial wormholes? It was published not long before the first appearance of quirks. ᴄᴟ perked up. No, I have not. L laughed. It's okay. Basically, the guy with the teleportation quirk does not actually have one, at least not in the normal sense. He seems to have a combo of quirks that allows him to generate a stable wormhole gate, which lets him move himself and other things near instantly. Unlike most other teleportation quirks. L's voice took on a sadistic tone. But wormholes also generate exotic particles, practically a billboard if you know what you're looking for. And according to the USJ sensors, he generates these particles every time he jumps. Everyone sat up straighter as L shifted. Combine that with the building safety sensor grid standard in all buildings in Japan and… Snipe asked. You know where he is? L answered. Possibly. The most particles are detected at a bar in Midtown, so it is likely the home of these jokers. ᴄᴟ cut in. We will prepare for an assault soon. Send all the info you have. L responded. Already done. Get these guys all right. They put my best friend into the ER. L finished with a growl. Midnight said. His best friend, huh? Next day. Izuku let go of Uraraka with a blush. I'm supposed to worry you. Uraraka sighed. I know, I'm sorry. Izuku leaned on the bench. I'm sorry I could not visit you. Uraraka looked down. No quirkless allowed in the hospitals. Izuku chuckled. Fun fact, the list of places I can actually go to is shorter than the one that I can't. Uraraka grumbled. That's not funny. Izuku finger-gunned her again, saying, I know, laughing about it is the only way I can talk about it without screaming. Izuku sat down. How's Aizawa? Ūriक़ᴜ sat next to him, teasing. Oh, something L does not know. Izuku frowned. He's been kinda busy finding the assholes who put you there. Ūriक़ᴜ blushed. Right, sorry, he is in rough shape, broken bones, skull injuries. Izuku leaned back. Fuck. Ūriक़ᴜ joined him. Fuck. Ūriक़ᴜ leaned against him. I was so scared, Izuku. I was floating him away and that creature closed on me. This was it. I was going to die. I closed my eyes ready to go, and then All Might. Izuku asked carefully. Can I touch you? Ūriक़ᴜ nodded, tears in her eyes. Izuku gently pulled her close. I know, I saw the footage, it must have been terrifying. Ūriक़ᴜ started to cry. I know being a hero is dangerous, but... Izuku let her cry into his shoulder. I know, Achicho, you're safe now. Ūriक़ᴜ cried for the next few minutes, relaxing to the sounds of Izuku's firm and steady heartbeat in her ear. Ūriक़ᴜ asked, Can I stay at your place tonight? Izuku ran a hand through her hair. Of course, Achicho, Mama would not have it any other way. Yue. Aizawa may be wrapped in bandages like a mummy, but that was not going to stop him from arriving on time for homeroom. On his desk was a laptop, just as he had requested of Nizu. When he entered, the class scrambled, shouting in concern at him. Aizawa grunted. I'm fine, we have important things to discuss. First off, we will briefly touch on the sports festival. It starts in 2 weeks, and one of the 3 big chances each of you have. If you don't plan on going underground, getting the attention of a pro can be key to your success. Aizawa finished. Classes will slow down as you get ready for the festival, with teachers making themselves available for extra training, and if you want direction on something to focus on to round out your training, you're more than free to ask. With no questions forthcoming, Aizawa started. When you're pro heroes, you will have to work with people you know little about, with skills outside of your own. One these such people are helping with the USJ investigation, and has some questions for you. Aizawa set up the laptop and it turned on. Eventually a Gothic L on a white background appeared. A disguised voice said, Hello Class 1A, I am L. Ida perked up a little as L introduced himself. L went on to say, We have good news and bad news. We are aware of the hideout of the group calling themselves the League of Villains, and are preparing an assault. The students let out a breath before Ishido asked carefully, And the bad news? L answered, Frankly, we don't know why they attacked. Mineta piped up. To kill All Might. L paused before saying, Doubtful. Shinso asked, Why? L was silent for a long second before Aizawa grunted. It's okay, they should hear your conclusions. L answered, Because if they wanted to kill All Might, there are easier ways to do it with the people they already had as opposed to recruiting low-level villains. Easiest way would be gate in a bomb and... Todoroki added quietly, No risk, all the reward. Bakugo scoffed. So they're stupid villain extras, it's not that deep. L responded. Young man, sadly it is that deep. From what we are able to gather, this is bait. They are using an urban legend to force these villains to follow orders. But for what purpose we are not yet sure. Most likely to get someone's attention? Current theory is either Nizu or All Might. L paused before saying, Keep your chin up, alright. All of you went through something. We can't expect all the answers right away or possibly ever. But all of you have bright futures ahead of you. Also, Eraser's fave color is black. Use this as you will. L out. Ūriक़ᴜ blushed, shaking her head, picturing Izuku cackling in his room after logging out. Aizawa glared. L has agreed to be used in a few lessons in the future. More details when the time comes. But assets like him are not to be taken for granted. Bakugo grumbled. He did not seem like much. Ida said. My brother told me he has solved hundreds of cases to hard for even pros, and even was largely the reason Stain was caught. Tsu added. Plus, from what my siblings have mentioned after play dates with Eri, Mr. L is her third favorite adult after helping her. Aizawa out of habit hid his head in his scarf as Kirishima asked, Who's the other two? Tsu answered casually. Aizawa-sensei, and someone named Ryuzaki. ᴚᴜᴜ wanted to scream that L and Ryuzaki are the same. But he needed to keep the secret. He interrupted. L is more than qualified, but I will say he is the same age as most of you here. So bear that in mind in how you treat him, and to not slack off. Izuku waited at the gate for ᴅᴜ when it opened and a girl with white hair and a horn skipped into view dragging a mummified ᴚᴜᴜ behind her. She saw him and lit up. Mr. Ryuzaki. Izuku went pale. He wanted to bolt but decided not to. He knelt saying, "Hey Eri. Sorry I had to run off like that. Is ᴚᴜᴜ treating you well?" Eri nodded urgently. "He is teaching me to control my quirk. And when I do a good job he gives me a candy apple." Izuku smiled. "That's great, Eri. You're doing so well." Eri beamed, and Izuku looked up at ᴚᴜᴜ. He smiled best he can. "Hey Eraser." ᴚᴜᴜ wanted to say something when Ida called. "Midoryia. It's great to see you." ᴅᴜ sent him an apologetic look, and Izuku went pale. "Yeah, Ida, glad you guys are okay." Ida added, "I met a most interesting figure. Named L. The world's greatest detective. It was an honor, and I found out he is our age. Truly I have much to strive towards." Izuku blushed as ᴚᴜᴜ watched the interaction before ᴅᴜ crashed into Ida. "Yeah, L is really cool, Ryuzaki." Ida responds dumbly. "Ryuzaki? Isn't his name Izuku?" ᴅᴜ face palmed. "My guy, you are the worst at reading the room." Eri was looking back and forth between Izuku and the teens as Izuku pinched his nose. "God, I wish I was dead." ᴚᴜᴜ snorted. "Nice to meet you, Izuku Midoryia." Eri asked, "Are you not Mr. Ryuzaki?" Izuku paused before looking at Eri. "I'm sorry I had to lie to you, Eri, but you see, I don't have a quirk, so I dropped you off at the station. I needed to make sure they would take care of you, and if they knew I had no quirk they might let you be safe." Eri tilted her head. "But why? You're so super nice." Izuku chuckled. "Glad you think so." ᴚᴜᴜ looked at him before saying, "We will talk soon, Midoryia." Izuku groaned, "Yay me." ᴚᴜᴜ and Eri left with Eri skipping away after waving. ᴅᴜ smacked the back of Ida's head. "Nice going, genius." Ida said, "I am sorry, I did not know that you were the one to rescue Eri. I just thought it was L and ᴚᴜᴜ. To think there was third person involved. Wait." Izuku held up his hand. "Whatever you're thinking, stop it." It was too late. Ida was already speaking. "Graduated high school at age 6, 8 college degrees, you're L, aren't you?" That's how you know who ᴚᴜᴜ was when ᴅᴜ mentioned his name without any context. ᴅᴜ growled, "Motherfucker, would you not shout my best friend's secret ID like that?" Ida bowed, "I'm sorry." Izuku shook his head. "Come on, let's get a drink and I will tell you the tale of L. That night. Niza concluded, "After this meeting we will assault the League of Villains base. Any other notes?" ᴚᴜᴜ raised his hand and Midnight teased, "More adorable Eri pics to share, Dadzawa?" ᴚᴜᴜ grunted, answering, "We need to talk about L." Present Mike said, "Oh, your other kid." Accepting a high five from Midnight. Izawa's glare was lessened by the bandages, but it still got the room quiet. He explained, "Eri and I ran into him while he was waiting for 2 of my students, and no, I will not say which ones." Midnight pouted. ᴚᴜᴜ added, "His name is Izuku Midoryia, no quirk, 14 years old, IQ of 295. He let that sink in as Niza's eyes almost bulged out of his head. ᴚᴜᴜ shrugged. "Graduated high school at age 6, college 8 times, can't do anything with it due to being quirkless. We all know the story." Snipe asked, "So we invite him to the school, right? Can we find a spot for him?" Niza shook his head. "No can do. I tried as soon as I found out L was a middle schooler. A lot of phones hang up as soon as the word quirkless is said." Present Mike asked, "So we know who the listener is?" "Now what?" The room was quiet, as no one had an answer. Bar. The revenge of the UA teachers had been swift, and neither of the villains had time to escape. They were currently on their way to Tartarus while the teachers searched the bar. Present Mike gently opened a laptop. It started to boot itself up before text appeared. Mike called, This answers the question as to who the attack was for. The screen read, "Good job, L, but don't get too ahead of yourself, that was just a warm-up. Smell you later." New York. Stan Jones was a normal hard-working stiff. He works as a cab driver by day as well as soup kitchens and animal rescue centers. Yeah, he was nothing special, he just tried his best to do right by as many people as possible. As he walked down the street, hands in his pockets, he enjoyed the wonderful moonlight, right before a villain unleashed a massive energy blast. Stan dove to the ground, but saw a young mother cradling a baby. The villain was aiming the blast at them. He was on his feet in seconds, and dove in front of the blast. He hit the sidewalk with a choked groan and a massive hole in his chest. A hero descended on the scene, but Stan was not really in a position to care. As he felt his life fade away, he could only smile, glad he died doing something good. Japan ᴡᴇ'ʟ. Izuku shifted in his chair in the large conference room. He was wearing a suit. It seemed appropriate. Usually he does his work in one of his favorite t-shirts that says, "Work shirt." But while L was on the line here, with all of ᴡᴇ''s staff knowing who he is now, with all these pro heroes looking at him, Izuku was really missing his icon and voice changer right about now. He cleared his throat saying, "So you guys hate me now?" The reactions were a mix of shock and sputters, before finally Aizawa grunted, "Problem child, what have we ever done to make you think we are not trustworthy?" Izuku shrugged, "You guys, nothing yet, but I know Nizu is scheming, either going to ask me to play chess and or take over the world. Which I will decline, too much work." Snipe chuckled at that. Izuku said, "Midnight wants to ask about ɪɪrᴜᴜ to get a rise out of me, ᴅᴇᴜᴜ wants to document my scars, and Mike wants L to be a guest on his radio show." Aizawa laughed. "You got us, kid," Izuku said again. "Well, if you guys don't hate me, then the next question is why I'm here. No matter how much good karma I have, I know it's not to offer me a way into ᴡᴇ'ʟ. And my rep is as a result of being the mysterious world's greatest detective, and I have a fan, or a psycho who pretends to be a fan, so yay me?" Niza asked casually. "Would you rather we play Connect 4 as opposed to chess?" Izuku deadpanned. "I'm a battleship man myself." The skinny blonde named Toshi nodded. "Good choice." Izuku grumbled. "So is anyone going to share why I'm here?" Niza said simply. "You are already aware we hope to use you as a teaching asset on occasion, but we do have formal paperwork to sign as well as your usual fee for the USJ case." Izuku blushed. "That was a freebie. Hell, I would have paid you guys to let me work on that one." Niza beamed. "Noted, but we are still paying you, and we would like to offer you ᴡᴜ's resources, to up your game if you will." Izuku pointed out. "I have more money than God." Power Loader cut in. "True, but you don't have our expertise. We drew up these blueprints for a new computer setup for you." Izuku blinked. "Whoa." Niza bared his teeth. "Keeping L on the bleeding edge is in all of our interests after all. Also, I'm sure quite a few people would love to intern with L after the sports festival." Izuku coughed. "What?" Niza grinned. "Our more investigation-oriented students would love to work with you, build worldwide connections." Izuku blinked. "First off, can I even issue offers? Second off, they would work with a nameless and faceless person over a computer screen?" Aizawa pointed out. "You have access to the Hero Net, and have been issued a non-action hero license as your credentials. You cannot patrol the streets or use a quirk in public, but you are a licensed pro-hero technically speaking." Niza explained. "Much the same stranding as a support hero." Izuku mumbled. "Cool." Niza laughed. "It is, isn't it? Well then, L, are you interested?" Izuku nodded. "If I see anyone of interest, or if someone is interested in investigations over action, put me on the list." Niza laughed. "Agreed." Izuku's cell phone started to ring, and Niza nodded. Izuku answered. "This is L." His tone and posture shifting from nervous to confident, Midnight made a mock swoon. Izuku nodded. "Send what you have over. I will look it over and speak with the task force as soon as I can." Izuku hung up saying, "Sorry, but L is needed, Nizu. Looking forward to our game." Niza beamed. "As am I." World Heroic Association, WHA heroes from all over the world sat in their seats as the letter L appeared on the giant screen. L spoke clearly. His disguised voice was different, clearer as if he changed his voice changer. Greetings to the international community, and thank you again for asking for my help. The head of the international task force, a hero from Paris named Ladybug, called. You're welcome, L. We are always happy for your help. L paused before saying, if you would indulge me, I would like to review the case facts as I have them, make sure we are all on the same page. Ladybug agreed. Go ahead. L started. 1 week ago, a cab driver in New York was killed in a villain attack. He was saving a family from the villain's energy blasts. This, while tragic, is not noticeable until his DNA was run by sheer chance and came back not as Stan Jones, but as an embezzler wanted by the international community after he slipped his bail and disappeared into international waters some 6 months ago. L added. It was also strange since Mr. Jones, as the name he assumed, was not living the high life of a sociopathic billionaire who escaped justice but as a simple working man, one of impressive, almost too impressive moral fiber, living an existence closer to a monk than of a wealthy man living off ill-gotten gains. L must. Perhaps a change of heart? The case could have been closed at that, until an odd pattern was detected. White-collar criminals who had escaped justice had suddenly disappeared, never to be heard from again. These cases until this point have been treated as separate vigilante cases, correct? Ladybug agreed. Yes, those are all the facts we know at this time. L hummed. Okay, then allow me to add some more. At this time I believe there are somewhere in the region of 50 or so victims, very few of whom are dead. At least in the traditional sense. L sipped something, saying, it also appears the chosen method of punishment, as it were, is a total mind wipe and then having a new life and personality installed in the minds of the victims. From there they are dumped in a new city, in a new country, with the goal of finding honest labor and giving back to society in a place where it is unlikely they will run into any of their victims. L sounded impressed. It's an interesting setup, and would have most likely gone completely unnoticed if not for this incident. We are looking for a group of people with money, resources, and connections. It's possible only one person does the mind wipe itself, and the rest could be followers and or hired muscle. L took another sip. This group, or at least the person doing the mind wipe, are also based out of Japan, seeing as there is a private flight to Japan a day before and day after each disappearance, same tail number and everything. L added. A quick glance at the Quirk database tells me that no one known Quirk does the mind wiping, so how exactly it is done is not known at this time. All heroes in this task force need to be on high alert, but the ones from Japan should take special note. We will need to start digging into old cases of someone who was or family was victims of a financial crime that was solved but those guilty were never brought to justice. Miss Joke agreed. Right. L must. They are either wealthy themselves or have some kind of sponsor who is wealthy. I know not a lot to go on. But it's a start, let's get to it. Mina Ashido apartment, girls' night. Mina clapped her hands. The first annual Class 1A Girls' Night is now in session. Tsu asked. Do we only get together like this once a year? Ribbit. Mina blushed. What? Of course not. Momo added. I believe it would be inaugural. Mina groaned. Whatever. We are here to have fun, not debate grammar. Uriarika lifted her hand. Thank you for inviting me, Mina. Mina laughed. You're very welcome. Now then. Movies? Snacks? Truth or dare? Tsu ribbited worriedly as Momo asked. Truth or dare? Jairu explained. Basically a game where you ask someone to either tell a truth or perform a dare. For example, I would ask Mina the truth or dare, let's say she says dare. From there I would ask her to do a handstand, you understand? Momo nodded. I think so. Toru clapped her invisible hands. Awesome! Sounds like we want to start with truth or dare. Uriarika blushed, really hoping no one asks about Izuku. The first rounds went quickly with some blushing and ship teases, but then the dreaded happened. Mina asked. Uriarika, truth or dare? Uriarika said carefully. Truth? Mina grinned. So this Izuku guy we have been hearing about, you got a crush on him? Next thing ᴜᴜ knew, she was floating on the ceiling. "Wah!" L said. "Welcome back, everyone. Teams in Germany and Australia have managed to track down other victims and have confirmed our theory that this group is mind-wiping white-collar criminals and giving them new lives dedicated to community service and honest work." Everyone shifted as L carried on. "The Japan connection is also confirmed, as we have located the first known victim. A Japanese transit minister who stole safety money and got away with it, who simply disappeared, just over 3 years ago. It is notable that mind wipes only started on international white-collar criminals some 18 months ago, which leads me to think this was originally a one and done. But someone grew interested and is likely sponsoring our vigilante." L typed, "I do have a suspect. Meet Tokoemi Manabashi, 85 years old. Her quirk allows her to add memories to someone's mind. She was a teacher for most of her life. With the ability to add baseline skills to her students, she was quite effective and beloved. She retired 3 years ago, and shortly thereafter a train crashed into her former school, killing all the students and staff. This was due to the stolen safety money I already mentioned. She lives up in the mountains and is a bit of a recluse. The heroes of Japan, I would like to place her under surveillance. We are already monitoring air traffic for the jet involved with the group." L then added, "Now we should try to find the next victim, and keep an eye on them. Perhaps we can capture some of the muscle involved with this case and get more evidence." L took a sip before saying, "Right, I forgot to mention, a research group in Japan were working on a drug that would boost the immune system of cancer patients. It worked, but it resulted in a total loss of all memory in the test subjects, and was shelved. The company that did these tests was acquired by a holding company, and all its inventory disappeared. I suspect, in fact, I'm sure, that the drug was given to our suspect for this exact purpose and perhaps was approached later by this same sponsor." L finished, "I will leave you to your work, until we know more," and logged off. Midoriya apartment. ᴜᴜ looked at Izuku's new setup, an impressive computer and 2 monitors, a real microphone with his voice changer ready to go, and a very comfy-looking chair. ᴜᴜ flopped on his bed with a grunt. "Cool." Izuku sat on his chair. "Cool? That's it." ᴜᴜ glared, "Cut me a break between getting teased by the girls and training for the sports festival. I don't have the energy to say anything clever about L's new setup." Izuku deadpanned, "I don't know how I will manage without you making fun of me." ᴜᴜ snorted, "If it makes you feel better, it's like you submitted your old laptop to Extreme Makeover Crime Fighter Edition." Izuku shook his head. "Nice, good one." ᴜᴜ crossed her arms. "I never liked that show." Izuku shook his head. "I don't think anyone does. Also, you're being teased by the girls? We in a mean girls situation? Do I need to frame them for a crime?" ᴜᴜ sat up. "Easy there, Izuku. It's nothing like that. Also, the amount of pre-quirk references you make is honestly impressive." Izuku shrugged. "Growing up, I tried to watch media with people like me in it, so that means mostly pre-quirk stuff. Also, stop dodging the question. What are they teasing you about?" ᴜᴜ blushed, Mina's voice ringing in her ear. "You totally have a crush on this Izuku." "Spill, girl." ᴜᴜ shook her head. "Oh, you know, girl stuff?" Izuku looked at her before shrugging. "I have no idea what that means, seeing as I can literally count my friends on one hand." ᴜᴜ crossed her arms. "What did Mr. Garrison tell you about casually ruining everyone's faith in humanity?" Izuku blushed. "Right, sorry." ᴜᴜ groaned. "Tomorrow I have to train with Mina. She is going to tease me the whole time." Izuku laughed. "I can come with you, no, help stave off this Mina character." ᴜᴜ shook her head. "That will not help." ᴜᴜ could practically hear Mina saying, "Oichichichich, you brought the boyfriend." Izuku answered, "If you say so, I should close my case soon, so why don't we go out for dinner or something?" ᴜᴜ went redder as Izuku fiddled with his computer. "Like a date?" Izuku waved his hand. "Sure." ᴜᴜ almost choked before Izuku added, "That's something friends do, right? I remind you, I have the social graces of a bullied recluse." ᴜᴜ calmed down. "Right, he was not asking me out, he just wants to hang out as friends. And does not know what his words mean." Izuku snapped his fingers. Right. Midnight told me I should tell you you're very beautiful. Ūraraka was a tomato. What? Izuku nodded, turning around. Are you okay? Getting a fever? Overworking? Ūraraka shook her head dumbly. Izuku smiled. As long as you're okay, and yes, she told me. If I want to deepen my relationship, I need to compliment you. She convinced me that the essay I had on how great you are is a bit wordy and that it should stick to something objectively true. Like how beautiful you are. Izuku finished casually, sipping his tea before groaning. It's cold. Ūraraka nodded, yeah. Izuku left saying, I need a refill and will get to work. You're welcome to stay and study if you want. Izuku left the room, and Ūraraka flopped back on the bed, covering her eyes, willing the blush to go away, swearing revenge on Midnight. L's symbol appeared and he said, Hello everyone, I hope you are well. Ladybug was exhausted as she said, We are okay, we managed to capture a group of the muscle as you called them in Lyon. L exclaimed, Nice, do they have anything to say? Ladybug answered, Only that they were to bring their target to an old lady in Japan and then later to somewhere else. L grumbled, Less enlightening than I was hoping. Still, that does give us cause to arrest our suspect. Getting her off the streets is good, I just hope she can shed light on her sponsor. L added to joke. Arrange for Miss Manabashi to be taken in. Ensure she is unable to touch any arresting officer or yourself's head and use her quirk, and if possible I would like to be allowed to be present at least digitally for her interrogation. Joke commented, I think we can swing that L. L responded, Excellent, Ladybug, see if you get all the locations out of the muscle you captured. See if we can locate the victims. Restoring their minds is likely impossible. Which is a shame, I suppose. After all, legally speaking, all these people are innocent even if not in the court of public opinion. L groaned, Well, vigilantism cannot be allowed to stand. What separates us from the animals, yada yada, you all know the drill, do what you can. I will be here to support until when or if I am able to assist in the integration. Joke was surprised by how easy this was. Manabashi, when they arrived, simply surrendered without much fuss. Was restrained in a straitjacket, and has not said a word since the interrogation began, not even to request a lawyer. Manabashi was not out of it by any means. Her eyes were clear and focused. Finally the laptop was brought in, and she seemed to perk up a little. The laptop turned on and L's symbol appeared. L spoke simply. Good evening, Miss Manabashi. You may not know me, but I am. Manabashi nodded. You are L. It is a pleasure to meet you. I would offer you tea if you were a guest in my house. But seeing as you're not, and my arms are less than free at the moment, I'm sorry to say I cannot. L answered simply. It is quite okay, Miss Manabashi. Manabashi smiled. So I take it you're the reason why I'm finally here? Being brought to justice? L paused. I'm not one to claim credit. Manabashi countered. Which only tells me the kind of person you are, L. Exactly what I have been told you are. L shifted. So someone told you about me? Manabashi nodded. The person these fine officers in Hero have been asking about, and no, I don't know their name, or very much about them. They referred to themselves as Mesa. They found about what that bastard did in my quirk and offered me a chance for real justice. I told Mesa I would not kill anyone, and Mesa laughed, saying that I would not be killing anyone, unless you count having them live to death. Manabashi smiled. After I did it the first time I was at peace. I'm an old lady. I have had my time on this earth. So when Mesa reached out to me again, asking if I would be willing to help other people who suffered like me, I happily said yes, even though L was going to find me eventually. Manabashi let out a fond smile. Mesa was always so nice to me. They offered to pay me for my trouble these last 18 months, but I declined. I have no need of money, justice, that's what I did it for. I committed the death of personality for true justice, more than anyone had ever done for us. Manabashi looked right at the camera on the laptop saying, Oh, and Mesa asked me to pass on a message for you. Mesa asked me to tell you that they get it. That's why they even started all of this. They were bored too. Ūraraka snapped her fingers as Izuku jumped a little. She asked, You good there, bud? Izuku shook his head. Yes, sorry, just something someone said struck a chord with me. ᴘᴜᴜ took a bite of her ramen. Oh? Penny for your thoughts. Izuku answered, do you know why I became L? ᴘᴜᴜ shrugged, solve cases? Help people? Izuku shook his head. That's the result, that's where I am and why I do this now. When I started, I figured Mom had somehow convinced a pro to throw me a bone with something to do as a charity case. ᴘᴜᴜ blinked. That's dumb. Izuku rolled his eyes. I know, but it made more sense than the truth, and that first case. I solved it, because I was bored. I had nothing better to do, and it was there, so why not? ᴘᴜᴜ nodded, sure? Izuku looked at her before shaking his head. What if it wasn't a pro that sent me an email by accident by a villain? Would I still have helped, all because I was bored? ᴘᴜᴜ asked. Izuku, it's not like you to dive into what-ifs. ᴘᴜᴜ laughed. I mean, come on. Would you start a criminal empire, just because you're bored? Izuku knew the answer, of course. After all, he had been bored, so bored that he cannot stress enough how bored he was. Mesa was a club, a place for people like Brainiac. It had been founded 5 years ago, when Brainiac and Kira were running from a villain attack. Their dads were both in the area for work and they stumbled into an underground bunker. Inside was advanced tech, creatures that defy imagination, everything would need to start a criminal empire. And what they needed most. The cure for what ails them, boredom. They were held back for years by quirks, by convention, by a world screaming at the void of long-dead tyrants. Brainiac was still stuck going to school in spite of being smarter than everyone else, just wanting to invent and be left alone, and Kira was treated like trash their whole life. Called a villain. Just for being what they are. But with what was in that bunker they could do it. A real challenge, a real chance to do something worth doing. They figured they would be stopped before long. But if they can help even one person, then it was worth it. But no one ever stopped them, and running the underworld started becoming routine. No messing with kids, no quirkism or Mesa will wipe you out. Other than that, everyone looked to them as the bosses, some knowingly, others not. Hidden behind fronts and layers of brokers and others, Mesa sat in the dark waiting for someone to try to shine a light on them. And then came their challenger, the person who could stop them, someone just as bored as they are. Along came L. Yue. Bakugo said simply. Shitty nerd. A fond smile on his face. Izuku smiled at him. Hey Kaken, still alive. Bakugo snarled, thank fuck. I figured. Well, when I heard the girls talking about some Izuku, I did not dare to hope. Then I heard round face went to Aldera for the last bit. Izuku snorted. Yeah, that school board was a real piece of shit. Bakugo pulled him into a hug. I was so sure when I came back I would be visiting your grave. Izuku returned the hug. I miss you too, Kaken. Bakugo snorted, shitty nerd with his stupid fucking nickname from when we were kids. Izuku pulled away saying, come on, we have a lot to catch up on. Bakugo grunted, hell yeah we do. I want to introduce your nerdy ass to the rest of 1A. You got ᴘᴜᴜ and Ida and myself of course, but your dumb ass needs more friends. And those shitty extras could use some advice on their quirks. Izuku grinned, aw, so he does care. Bakugo growled, you shut your bitch ass up. He finished with no venom. Bakugo added, got you a hall pass, nerd. Come on, let's be social. Izuku paused. You sure they will? Bakugo whipped around. I vouch for Izuku, they are good people, and if they do turn out to be some bullshit quirkists, round face, and I will beat them so hard they will forget what century they are in. And then Hobo Teacher will expel their asses. He hates quirkism, so relax. I got your back. Izuku smiled at him. You always do, Kaken. Bakugo snorted, damn right I do, come on nerd. Training Gym Yue. Izuku watched everyone training with great interest. He knew from ᴘᴜᴜ that 1A was tight after the attack on the USJ, but it was even clearer now. Izuku watched from the benches from the side as the heroes in training laughed and joked and reset their training for another round. Is that what my life would have been like if I had a quirk? ᴘᴜᴜ waved him over and Izuku moved into the group asking, so what do you think, Izuku? Izuku blushed. Well, I can't presume, Bakugo yelled, just share you damn nerd, These extras need to be able to put up a real fight, and me and Roundface are the only ones who got your insight. Izuku looked down. If it's okay? Kirishima, a red-haired boy, called. Lay it out for us, Midori bro. Izuku nodded. Denki, you need to use your electricity around your hands like a boxing glove. Coating your arms in it, and getting into melee is key. It would also be a good idea to invest ways to make yourself an actual taser in the field, but that won't help in the festival. Everyone seemed eager to hear more, leaving a blushing Izuku to explain other new tactics and ideas he has, and Bakugo and Uraraka high-five in the background. Elsewhere, Midnight entered the alley with a seductive smirk. Well, did not expect you to call me detective. Sakachi answered, well, I would call Aizawa, but he is not cleared for duty, and well, one of you needs to see this. In a pool of blood lay a disemboweled man in a suit. In the victim's blood a message was written reading, L, can you solve this one? Kira, winky face, Midnight bulked, trying to get L's attention? Sakachi shrugged, maybe? These messages have appeared by 2 other bodies. Here is the thing, all of them are restaurant staff, not exactly Mesa's MO. Midnight groaned, so L has 2 nut jobs wanting his attention? Sakachi exhaled, yeah, a serial killer and some self-proclaimed world reformer? Midnight asked, should we tell him? Sakachi pointed out, only 3 murders. Midnight countered, writing a message for him in blood. Sakachi asked, do you think we should? Midnight looked at the brutalized body and answered, I wished we didn't need to. Sakachi groaned, I will contact him. Station. L let out a groan. Man, where are all these people even coming from? Midnight teased, looks like you're famous. L pouted, I'm sure how. Alright, let's start with the basics. The victims are all service industry workers who were brutally murdered in what seems to be a fit of rage, which does not line up with leaving messages in blood for me. These murders are sloppy. Frankly, there is a lot of evidence here. Sakachi agreed, so what are we dealing with, L? L mumbled, attention seeker? Claiming credit for someone else's kills to get my attention? Why? There was also a winky face, it's playful. Feels similar to the USJ case, and the fake All for One. Same person? I figured the fake All for One was Mesa? But if it isn't? Midnight eyebrow rose as L talked a mile a minute. Assuming Kira is the same as the person who made contact after the USJ, they whoever they are not afraid of burning criminal connections and are testing me somehow. Trying to find a worthy opponent, since they called the USJ case just a warm-up. But on the surface this case is quite simple. Kira did not kill these people. And the list of suspects is so small that frankly the police would have figured it out themselves. L took a sip. It makes no sense? Why call out L? What do they have to gain? Sakachi cleared his throat. You have suspects? L answered, yeah. All the people involved had recently had complaints filed against them by the same person, and all these complaints were dismissed due to their ridiculous nature. L said the main suspect is Awazi Toga, Quirk Blood Rage. He is a wealthy stockbroker with real anger issues. He has been accused several times of assault, abuse and other crimes but never charged. The evidence never stuck. Midnight asked, maybe that's why Kira wanted you to look into it? L would be able to make the charges stick. L typed, maybe he had a daughter, but she died about 18 months ago, car accident. He lives with his wife to say they have a strained relationship. Is a gross understatement, looking into all his former accusers, but so far none fit the profile of our Kira. Midnight crossed her arms. We are in strange territory, L. I think we should focus on proving Toga's guilt, and then from there we can worry about finding Kira. L agreed, yeah, you're right. But something about this is rubbing me the wrong way. UA Support Lab. May lifted the goggles from her eyes, clearly interested. You want to add an RCS system to your suit? Uraraka nodded. Yeah, recently a friend of mine made a suggestion. If I can get a system like spacecraft, I can fly when I make myself float. May nodded. I can make that work, with a nice interface in your helmet. It won't be done before the festival. It seems all of Class 1A were in here. Uraraka blushed. Yeah, Izuku was really helpful? May tilted her head, an eager look on her face. Izuku? Uraraka says quickly. He does not go to UA. May's face fell. Dang, I was hoping to get someone to bounce baby ideas off of. ᴅᴜᴜ felt a fierce protective, almost jealous tug in her gut adding, "Oh, you guys would not get along, he's not very social." May turned around. "Oh, the shy ones are the most fun. Power loader will let you know when your stuff is done." ᴅᴜᴜ said stiffly, "Yes, sweet, thank you." ᴅᴜᴜ left the support lab shifting mumbling, "What's wrong with me?" Teacher's lounge. ᴅᴜᴜ shifted nervously as Midnight sat across from her. She said, "So was my art report not good enough?" Midnight laughed. "Oh no, it was very good, top marks." He finished with a wink. ᴅᴜᴜ laughed. "Cool, so then why did you want to talk to me?" Midnight said carefully, "L's best friend was hurt in the USJ, he helped a girl train her quirk. He also screwed up his relationship with a girl and wanted my help, and asked for my help deepening his relationship." She finished with a smirk. ᴅᴜᴜ's poker face betrayed her, and she turned red before he looked up. "He is barely socialized. You keep telling him to flirt with me." Midnight pointed out. "He's not that bad." ᴅᴜᴜ countered, "He invited me out. I asked him if it was a date, and he said, 'Yes, that's what friends do, right?'" Midnight let out a scandalized, "Oof." ᴅᴜᴜ looked down. "He only calls me pretty because you told him to." Midnight grabbed her shoulder. "First offer called you beautiful, and only told him to tell you what he thinks of you, and the first thing that came to mind is how beautiful you are." Midnight let go, adding, "I read his essay on you. There was a whole section, 4 pages long, about your beauty, both physical and of your soul. That boy is head over heels for you. But has the emotional awareness of Aizawa after a few years in the woods." ᴅᴜᴜ started to cry. "He thinks I'm beautiful, but I'm ugly and poor." Midnight hugged her. "Honey, you are amazing. Anyone who says otherwise should not be able to drive because legally they are blind." ᴅᴜᴜ chuckled through her sobs. "But I can't. All the girls wear fancy clothes and have new gadgets. They have pocket money to flaunt. They can pay their own way on dates. I would have to mooch off him. I already have. I'm a terrible friend. How bad would it be if he ever lowers himself to date me?" Midnight looked at her, a soft expression on her face. "I know how you feel. I was raised by a hairdresser, not a lot of money growing up. The real ones don't care, ᴅᴜᴜ, and trust me, that boy is as real as it gets. You know we pay him into an account in America, right? Well, he drip feeds his mom money pretending to be his deadbeat dad." ᴅᴜᴜ looks up frowning. "Really?" Midnight nodded. "Really, other than that, the guy has no idea what to even do with his money. We literally had to force him to let us pay him. I guarantee you he does not care how much money you have. In fact, if you talk to him about this, I think we both know what he would say." ᴅᴜᴜ smiled through her tears. "He would say something like, 'I have so much money, achicho, not like I'm spending it on anything important. May as well change that and spend it on you.'" Midnight laughed. "That boy is the most unintentionally smooth guy I have ever met." ᴅᴜᴜ joined in. "Tell me about it." ᴅᴜᴜ looked up at Midnight, saying, "Thank you." Midnight smiled at her. "You're welcome, dear. We are all pulling for you guys. Speaking of, no matter how I try, I can't get him to tell me anything about himself outside of what's in his file. So spill the tea." ᴅᴜᴜ smiled. "The first time I met him, he was talking about how he needed to pretend to be a teacher after accidentally mentioning he was a middle schooler." Station. Midnight teased, "I had a great talk with your girlfriend today, L." L responded, "ᴅᴜᴜ is not my girlfriend." Midnight smirked. "I don't recall saying I was talking about ᴅᴜᴜ." L grumbled, "What did I do to deserve this?" Midnight asked teasingly, "You going to ask her out?" L answered, "No, she would not want to date a quirkless Deku like me." Midnight growled, "Yeah, and the sky is red and they are 14 months in a year. Cut the shit, L." L paused. "I saw what my mom went through just by keeping me in her life. She is already in rocky water just by being my friend. But a pro hero dating or more with a two-toe, I can't do that to her." Midnight asked, "Do you think she cares about that?" L answered, "No, and that's why I have to." L cut off her response, saying, "So Toga, I found out why, in spite of this guy not even trying that hard to hide the whole murder, assault, abuse thing, is still walking free as a bird. Well, it seems he is filling out his asshole bingo card. He is a quirkist. A big one, as in he is a major sponsor of the True Front. Midnight grunted. The assholes that hate everyone without normal quirks? L agreed. Yep, currently sitting pretty at 12 seats in the national diet. These guys hate folks with mutations, and because of course they do, quirkless people. Seeing both as inferior, and they have been accused in the past of corruption and seem to have police and other groups on their payroll, they would be more than happy to make a few minor cases disappear. Midnight asked. So this is your test? An obvious answer but a hard solution? L agreed. Seems like. I have ᴅᴇᴅ with guys he trusts bringing ᴘᴇ in. We have the evidence. If I can get a confession out of him, the fact it was done by the pro hero L, which side note is still super cool, and with ᴅᴇᴅ there, well, it may be enough. Midnight agreed. Right, we will be wary of Kira trying to contact L again after this is over. Interrogation room. The laptop was set up and ᴅᴇᴅ sat down saying, Hello sir, for the record, were you informed you are under arrest and under what charges? Toga scoffed. Yes, you said I murdered some bastards. ᴅᴇᴅ nodded. I am Detective ᴅᴇᴅ, badge number 1257. I am required to tell you about my quirk, which is lie detection. I cannot be turned off and is active at all times. The laptop lit up and L said, Hello Mr. Toga, I am L. Toga narrowed his eye. L? Like on the news? L answered simply. Very possibly, I am a pro hero and have been working the murder case to which you have been accused. ᴅᴇᴅ said. Before we ask you any questions, are you sure you want to waive your right to a lawyer? Toga grunted. Let's just get this over with, gentlemen. L started simply. In the folder in front of you is a series of photos. Open them if you will. Toga did, and L stated. If you could say what is inside for the record. Toga grunted. Dead bodies. L clarified. Murdered bodies, all of whom died in what appears to be a fit of rage. The second and third one were gutted like a fish by a sharp object. The first one was beaten to death with bare hands. Toga shrugged. Were they? L added. Please, Mr. Toga, now is not the time to play games. Your fingerprints are all over their clothes, your DNA is under their fingernails, and we have several eyewitness accounts placing you as being very aggressive with these people, trying to get them fired for having subhuman quirks, as you describe. They never are, of course. Toga slammed his hand on the table. So what if a couple of freaks die? Who cares? L answered simply. I think a more apt question is, why don't you care? Mr. Toga? With all the charges you have been accused of but dropped under strange circumstances, you would think a man would go play the lottery and do their best to stay out of trouble. Toga demanded. What the hell do you want from me, L? You think you know all the answers? L answered calmly. Maybe I do. After all, I'm a well-known hater of quirkism. And as I already pointed out, the evidence against you is quite firm, and police are searching your home and office right now. How long do you think it will be before they find the bloody clothes you never could wash just right? Or your favorite knife? Maybe they already have. Toga blinked. How did you? It's no matter. My friends. I'll cut him off. Oh, they will spring you, and then fit you with cement shoes and drop you in the ocean, for getting me involved. L is now interested in them. Even if you did not know my record, they will. You would not last an hour on the outside. Toga asked, defeated. What do you want? L answered. Oh, that's simple, Mr. Toga. What do you want? To live if I were to venture a guess? Toga nodded and L laughed. Well, we can provide that for you. You confess to your crimes, all of them, and maybe throw in who you worked with to dodge justice, and we can make that happen. You will go to jail, of course, Mr. Toga. But no one will hurt you. We will make sure of it. Toga asked. I'm going to need a pen, and a lot of paper. Midoryia apartment. ᴜᴜ finished. I'm exhausted, Izuku. We are getting close to the big day, my big chance for an internship. Izuku smiled at her. Well, if you're interested in investigation, L is able to offer. ᴜᴜ laughed. I think that would be conflict of interest? Izuku looked at her. Yeah, I suppose so, and you deserve someone better. ᴜᴜ took his hand. No, I don't. I deserve someone like you, Izuku, you're the best. Izuku blushed. Please, being around me would just drag you do. Izuku was interrupted by soft lips pressing against his, and Uraraka's closed eyes. Izuku's eyes drifted closed and returned the kiss. The two pulled away looking into each other's eyes, before Ūraraka went bright red. I am so sorry, I should have asked. I should go. Bye Zuku. And bolted out of room. Izuku made chase, stopping her on the steps outside of the apartment. Achicho, wait. Ūraraka carefully turned around. Izuku took her hand. This may be a stupid question, but you like me, right? Ūraraka nodded. Yes, Izuku, I really do. Izuku gripped her hand in his. I like you too, and I want nothing more than to ask you out on a date right now, but we need to make sure we do this right. We do this wrong. Ūraraka turned to face him. I don't care, Izuku. Izuku asked, but your folks? Ūraraka cut him off. Have been teasing me about you since we met. They don't care that you're quirkless, and those quirkists can go to hell. I don't want them. I want you, Izuku. Would you go out with me? Izuku inhaled before saying, Yes, Achicho, I would love to. Izuku and Achicho embraced as Inko watched from the apartment door, tears falling from her eyes, a big smile on her face. Elsewhere. Mesa bitches love. Kira, did you see this? He did it. Way more than we expected. Brainiac, L is really everything we hoped he would be. Kira, do you think he knows that Mesa and Kira are part of the same group? Brainiac, maybe, even if he does, he can't prove it. How is everyone holding out? Kira, the families of that asshole's victims have been compensated out of the usual fund, and I also sent that cutie LA fruit basket. Brainiac, how? Kira, you can't see me, but I'm pouting. Fine, I send it to the cops, and hopefully L will find out. Brainiac, SMH, okay, I got to run. I have to clean up the support lab. Kira, man, imagine still being in school, tongue sticking out. Brainiac, straight face, just keep the gangs in line. The last thing we need is bowling night to get crazy again. Kira, ᴅᴇʟᴜ07. Brainiac, stay safe. Okay, you know how I worry. Kira, I will, love. Brainiac, okay, I'm being glared at. G2G night. Kira, night. Izuku sat in Nisa's office. It was a tense scene. The game between them had been close and going on for nearly an hour. Nisa asked as he made his move. Have you looked at our students? Any that might be interesting as possible interns? Nisa completed his move and Izuku took his turn, saying, 2 possible ones, Yazawa and Monoma of Class 1A and 1B respectively. Yaoyorozu is smart but lacks creativity in her approach, while Monoma can easily be blinded by his pride and his desire to not be seen as a villain. Both could do well in investigation but could easily overlook key evidence. Izuku finished his move smiling. You're in a rough spot, Nisa. Nisa nodded. Indeed, but I am not quite finished yet, L. Nisa moved his paws around the tweezers, before a loud buzz was heard and Bear Rat Creature lost the game of operation. Izuku sipped his tea smugly and Nisa bared his teeth. You got me this time, but next time I will win. Izuku glanced at his watch, saying, Battleship is still my game, and you're more than welcome to challenge me to it. Nisa laughed. I shall. Izuku stood up, saying, After the sports festival, extend Monoma and Yaoyorozu the offers, but make sure they have backups. Not everyone has the stomach for the cases I am sent, and they are still young. Nisa ignored the fact that Izuku was the same age as them, saying, Of course I shall, and good luck on your date. Izuku blushed, saying, Thank you. Midoriya apartment. Izuku had his L phone balanced on the dresser, a call with Midnight ongoing. Who finished? Honestly, I think you are overthinking this. Izuku grumbled. It's my first date, not only with Achicho, but ever. Come on, I need some help here, and it's you or Eraser. Midnight shuddered. Yeah, good call asking for me then. Izuku asked. So what should I do? What should I wear? Where should I take her? Midnight started. Okay, step 1 is figuring out what you're going to wear. The date is not for a couple of weeks, with the sports festival and the internships, but locking that down now is key. Midnight said. I would go with jeans, a nice polo and a light jacket, so when she gets cold you can give it to her to wear. Izuku asked. When? Midnight smirked. Yes, when. Now let's talk about the full date. 1 week later. Monoma tried his best to ignore the 1A girl next to him. Both were told to come in normal clothes, so they were dressed as civilians. A guy with black hair and glasses wearing a uniform bumped into them, apologizing quickly before his eyes went wide. Whoa, are you guys from UA? I saw the sports festival. Yaoyorozu nodded. Yes, we are. Glasses beamed. Wow, cool. He then shifted, looking at them both. I have a question for you guys, if you don't mind? Waving his hand, scraps of red on the edges of his fingers. Possibly from nail polish. Monoma said carefully. Sure? Glasses asked. Does a quirk make a hero? Monoma answered without thought. Yes, quirks are key to being a hero. Yaoyorozu added. Indeed, the type and power of your quirk is what is key to being a good hero. Glasses asked quietly. What about the quirkless? Monoma answered. I'm not sure a quirkless person could be a hero. Yaoyorozu wanted to disagree but could not. Yes, the world of heroics is quite dangerous. Glasses looked down before bowing. Thank you for your time. Oh, can I get autographs? The students nodded. Monoma asked. Who should I make it out to? Glasses answered. Ryuzaki. Both students signed the autographs, and Ryuzaki smiled before hurrying out of view. Monoma exhaled. Come on, 1AI of the superior class B will lead us to our mentorship. Eventually they arrived at a run-down-looking building. They had been told to go to apartment 334. Finding the place, they unlocked the door to find a clean if unassuming apartment with a laptop on the kitchen table and a manila folder next to it. Monoma asked. This is L's agency? Yaoyorozu rolled her eyes. He does not have one, he works remotely, no one knows anything about him. Monoma mocked. And how do you know that? Yaoyorozu said coldly. He talked to us after the USJ, through a laptop. Momo turned on the laptop. It spun to life before the symbol of the pro hero L appeared, a disguised voice saying, Excellent, you got this far. I was starting to worry you would not turn on the laptop. Monoma scoffed. So a test, huh? Trying to see if we are worthy? L deadpanned. No point, you are worthy, else you would not be here. No, I am trying to test exactly what it is I'm working with, who you are off the paper. So far my interactions with you have been unsurprising but telling. Momo asked. Interactions? This is only my second time speaking to you and Monoma's first. L corrected. It would be your fourth, Yazawa, and Monoma's second, but I digress. You're more than welcome to try to figure out when I interacted with you earlier. In fact, I welcome it. But now I need to determine the kind skills you have in solving cases. I should warn you all, the cases I deal with are messy. If you have a weak stomach, Nizu is more than willing to arrange for a new internship. Monoma demanded. You think we cannot handle it? L answered simply. Let's find out. Inside the folders in front of you is a test of your deductive reasoning. Open them, please. Momo opened her and pulled out 3 photos and almost gagged. Each photo contained a dead body, murdered in a sea of its own blood and guts, a message with a pentagram at the top written in English and blood. The bodies are in various locations, with the first in an alley, the second a warehouse, and the final one in an apartment very similar to the one they were currently in. Momo cleared her throat, face pale as Monoma asked. Geez, this shit is sick. L responded simply. Leave the photos on the table and walk out if you cannot handle it otherwise. Please examine the photos and let me know your conclusions. Silence filled the room before Momo said. The messages are written in blood? Do we know if it is the victims? L answered. We do, and it is. Monoma added. Whoever did this is angry at the victims. L answered, perhaps. Momo read the messages saying, all variations on the same thing. Hero name, please stop me. It controls me. With the pentagram, we could be dealing with delusions. Or some kind of possession quirk? L agreed. Seems possible. Another silence filled the room before they put their photos down. L asked. Is that all the deductions you were able to produce? Momo answered for them. I'm sorry to say, but yes. L chuckled. That's fine, so what are your theories? Monoma pointed toward the messages. We are looking for someone possessed or thinks they are and are driven to violently kill people. L paused before asking, "Do you both agree with this conclusion?" Momo answered, "I agree with Monoma's theory." L laughed. "Perhaps I am not being fair to you both. Allow me to say a few things and see if you can find the evidence I see. We are looking for a young man who is obsessed with heroes and is desperate for as much attention as possible and is angry over how important quirks are considered." Momo reread the notes. "Oh God, he is writing in English to be picked up by as many news networks as possible. He calls out famous heroes and makes his killing as brutal as possible for attention and uses the pentagram in hopes of further increasing his legend?" L nodded. "Indeed, well done, but there is one point neither of you addressed yet, how I know he is a young man." Monoma looked at the pictures again. The last one, the one in the apartment, was dated about an hour ago. In apartment 333, Monoma went pale. "That eager kid? The one who knew we wanted to be heroes? Who asked us about quirks and our autographs?" L asked. "Did you notice anything odd about him?" Momo blinked. "His glasses were fake, he was wearing colored contacts. I thought it was just a fashion choice." L asked. "So the blood on his fingertips escaped your notice?" Monoma growled. "I thought it was nail polish or something. He seemed normal." L nodded. "Most of them do." Momo's eyes went wide. "It was you! You said you met us once already. You were testing us to see what we would notice." L laughed. "Yes, it was me, and no, I don't look like that, and Ryuzaki is not my real name, but I think I played the part of deranged serial killer quite well. Sadly, you both failed my test." Both Hero students looked down, but L added, "Don't sweat it, so far no one I have given this test to has passed. Now is the moment of truth. Do you want out?" Momo said bluntly. "No, sir." Monoma agreed. "No way, sir. We failed your test once, but we will not let you down again." L paused before saying, "Very well, Creati, Phantom Thief. Tomorrow the real work starts. Report to HPSC Building G in downtown Mustafa. Midnight will also be there. She will be your field trainer during your internship, seeing as I'm not very action-focused. Fair warning, this one is nasty." And with that L logged out. Momo and Monoma looked at each other and felt a chill run down their spines. Class 1IE. 3D printer. Well, that was terrifying. Alien Queen, your internship? 3D printer. Yeah, we were sent to a shady apartment building and tested on our deductive skills by trying to find a fake serial killer, who it turned out was L in disguise, and we had met earlier when he acted like a fan and got our autographs. He seemed harmless, and seemed we missed to fake blood on his fingers from writing the messages. Alien Queen, WOFF, well, it's not like it can get worse. 3D printer, we are going to the HPSC building tomorrow for a case L described as nasty. Alien Queen, have a light lunch. 3D printer, perhaps a good idea. HPSC building. The room is both quiet and loud. Pro heroes are hanging around chatting, but there is a tension in the air. Momo and Monoma have been hanging around midnight, too nervous to say much to any of the assembled pros, some of them looking at them oddly after hearing they are L's interns. Eventually an HPSC figure called, "Everyone take your seats." Momo and Monoma took their seats next to Midnight, who shifted before the projector came online and glow of L's symbol filled the room, the disguised voice saying, "Hello everyone, thank you again for inviting me to assist in this case. For those of you who do not know me, I am L." Monoma asked, "Why is he speaking English?" Midnight whispered, "He is addressing several heroic communities across the world right now." She then held out 2 earpieces which would translate from English to Japanese automatically. Momo declined and Monoma almost did until a glare from Midnight had him inserting the earpiece. L addressed the rooms calmly stating, "I will cut straight to the chase. Yesterday I was approached by the pro-hero Panther, who is active in the rainforest regions of South America. They had stumbled onto a rather gruesome sight." L's symbol vanished, replaced with what looks like a village with piles of dead bodies, all of them with sickly marks and sores all over them. The assembly made sick noises as L carried on. The authorities within Brazil where the incident took place were able to determine it was an outbreak of the Black Death, They were also able to determine that the plague was modified heavily, allowing it to resist both antibiotics but also most forms of Quirk interference. L stated glumly. Make no mistake, we are dealing with a terrorist threat. 7 hours ago, the World Heroic Association received a claim of responsibility from a party calling themselves the Engineers. Everyone seemed shocked as L finished. They intend to strike again, unless their demands are met. Their demands? The death of the one known as L. L added, Now I am more than happy to take one for the team, but there is no guarantee or even likelihood they will stop upon my death. It is also likely they people we are looking for have a past with one of the cases I have solved in the past. L exhaled. I started to look through all the cases I have worked on over the last 11 months, narrowing my focus to groups with a high degree of scientific knowledge and or funding, from there to people who would know I was involved. Since I'm not in the advertising business, there are few cases in which my involvement is public knowledge. L typed, and I have narrowed the focus to 5 cases. The details have been sent to you all. We need to work fast to find these people responsible, or otherwise more innocent people will die. L started typing and mumbling before groaning, Sorry, and muting himself. He was still online. As everyone got to work investigating. 3 hours later, L unmuted himself saying, A few weeks ago I had a case which exposed the true front, and their various crimes. They have lost a lot of public appeal, and my involvement in that case was one of the most high profile so far. L mused, They have the funding and of course the motive. Either L dies or a lot of death occurs because of him, allowing them to worm their way back into the limelight. L typed mumbling, But do they have the scientific know-how to produce plague of this scale? L shook his head. As a group? No, they are little more than a group of self-righteous stuffed shirts. Their donors are mostly business people, mostly in Japan as expected, but a few aboard as well? These can mostly be written off as expats, but there is one outlier among them, which lines up with our suspects quite a bit. L typed saying, West Tech is a major support company and Quirk researcher mostly active in America, more specifically California. About 40 years ago another division was founded under commission of a Japanese shell company, Eclipse Industries. This division, the West Tech Bioweapons Division, built a lab in Africa. They claimed to be researched bioweapons and the use of quirks against them. L grunted. This is a farce, of course. About 5 years ago Eclipse Industries dissolved, and pulled funding from the West Tech Bioweapons program. But interestingly enough another company started funding the program instead. This company, while also Japanese, was an investment group, and would have little legal use for a bioweapons program. L finished, and 3 guesses as to who owns the above-mentioned company. Monoma asked, So that's our full circle connection. These guys own the company funding a bioweapons program of a nature perfect for these attacks? L agreed, yes. But now we need to find the weapons they have planted before the allotted time for my execution arrives. Looking at the remote village, very little stands out about it, save for its remoteness and closeness to water. Looking at the quirks, they are diverse but generally weak by most standards. But they do all have minor mutant features, such as webbed feet. L finished. This was both to use their weapon without fear of it spreading out of control before they wanted to, but also in an effort to throw us off. After all, if they attacked anywhere of, say, predominantly people with animal quirks, it would have led back to them. L took a sip. But will they keep up that trend? Or not? After all, to attack those who in their eyes do not deserve it would go against their ideals on which they are founded. And while they hate me, I don't think they hate me that much. L typed. Somewhere where there are a lot of people, most likely young, to maximize impact and make the message they are sending clearer, but also a lot of mutants so they in their twisted way can sleep at night. L ordered. Clear out the Tokyo, Central Park, Edinburgh and finally La Paz zoos. Search for any sign of the devices, most likely deployed through airborne means. I would suggest full gas masks. Everyone scrambled as Midnight said to Momo and Monoma. Quickly, we are moving. Tokyo Zoo. Momo struck at the figure with her staff before ducking as bullets flew over her head. Monoma let out some of Midnight's quirk, knocking out a handful of goons, saying, We have the bomb! Momo moved quickly into the small shed, to see the 4 glowing cylinders of plague, and an ominous countdown. Midnight is called. Coming in. Mononoke pointed out. 30 seconds left. Midnight walked in and hit the off switch. Breath deep, kiddos, we are okay. Mononoke started to laugh. It was that easy. Momo started to chuckle before they both bent over, laughing their asses off, happy to be alive. 6 days later. Momo and Mononoke sat on the couches in the same apartment where they were tested nearly a week ago. Most of the rest of the internships were spent on clean-up, rounding up everyone involved on the attempted attacks on several cities throughout the world. The ringleaders were arrested and on their way to a deep, dark hole from which they will never emerge. Well, almost all the ringleaders. It was impossible to prove that the current leader of the True Front ordered the attack. In the end, L had proof, but not enough for the HPSC to make a move, understandably not willing to let pro-heroes influence politics, and with the True Front's still intact police connections. It is likely the case file and evidence is already on a shelf in a storage room to collect dust. L had told them all this matter-of-factually, and Momo and Mononoke had yelled they had raged, demanding to know what L was going to do. And he let them, until the quiet settled on them all. L said simply, I wish I could tell you both something different, I really do. But sadly we do not live in a fair world. There is a chance they will take another swing at me, and we can catch them that way. But I will say you both did fine work. Momo shook her head. Thank you, sir, but I don't feel like I did. L paused. Is it because the big bad got away with it? Mononoke grunted. Those bastards! They killed 50 people and tried to kill thousands, and they walk away with nothing. L stated bluntly. Yep, welcome to the world of heroics. You cannot win them all, but what matters is that thousands of people were saved, and you. The heroes did it. I would be lying if I said I thought I did a good job teaching all of you this past week, but if you took nothing away from this case, think about this. The True Front, they thought they were playing chess, they kill a few pawns to put the king, myself, in an exposed position. L finished firmly. If I can teach you nothing else, then I will stress this. Anyone who treats life like a game of chess deserves to lose. L paused. Be it in your normal life, and you're one as heroes, remember that. And with that, L's symbol disappeared. A second later, smoke came out of the laptop as it fried itself. Momo and Mononoke stared at the wall for a second as L's words sunk in. Midoriya apartment. Izuku sat back in his chair with a groan. Did that sound cool? Or even make sense? His phone buzzed, Achicho texting him. On my way back from Gunhead. Date hype. Izuku snorted, texting back. Looking forward to it. I have some great ideas. Achicho texted. You asked Midnight for help, didn't you? Izuku went pale. No. Achicho responded. Straight face. Izuku groaned. Okay, yes. But it is strictly PG, I swear. Achicho said. I'm just playing, you dork. I'm so excited to see what you came up with. Izuku smiled. He was still nervous about his date, but Midnight's plan was solid. He was going to do this. Elsewhere. Onigari sits in his limo. It was a pain that the police talked to him again after the failed attack, but now that the HPSC favors, he called and pulled L off the case. His contacts would bury the thread before long. Onigari grunts. L is such a pain in the ass. The limo pulls over and his bodyguard sits next to him. Onigari asked. Were you able to contact them? The bodyguard held up a weird gun and fired. When Onigari woke up, he was tied to a chair with a girl with blood hair, and Fangs was sitting on a crate kicking her legs before grinning. Oh good, you're awake. Onigari asked. Who are you? The girl looked hurt. Who am I? After all the trouble you went through to contact us? Onigari demanded. You're Mesa? The girl waved. I mean, no, I'm Kira. But I'm a part of Mesa. I'm surprised you don't recognize me. You were at my funeral. Super uncute dude. Onigari blinked. Himiko? Kira pointed. Yeah, that's me. Onigari said dumbly. You're dead. Kira rolled her eyes. So are you genius, the moment you tried to Ellie? Onigari said. Wait, you're going to kill me. Another voice formed behind him. Yep, you're a Quirkus prick, and tried to kill Elle. We don't need much more reason to kill you, short of kicking a puppy or one of my babies. A girl with pink hair wearing coveralls came into view. Thanks for getting this dumpster, Kira. Kira pouted. It was really easy though, ᴡᴇʟ. ᴡᴇ panicked. Please don't kill me. ᴡᴇʟ asked. How many people asked you just that, and you didn't? Huh? ᴡᴇ didn't answer, and ᴡᴇʟ. You see, you're getting the devil's share. It's the world's way of evening things out. ᴡᴇʟ picked up a headband-like device, saying, Just relax, you will feel a slight tingling sensation. As the band slipped over ᴡᴇ's head, Kira added dreamily, Then happy days.